So they just discovered a new species of Spinosaurus, Spinosaurus mirabilis. It is 17 meters long, and the bones say that it loved to stay in the water, which means that the first one that we found was already weird, and this one just said, "Hold my fish." And looking at the bones, I had a thought. What if one of those eggs somehow ended up in the Florida Everglades? Not in a zoo, not in a lab, just in a swamp in today's age, because the Florida Everglades is basically the Spinosaurus' natural habitat if you squint. It's hot, wet, and full of things that want to eat you. Except here's the problem. The Everglades is already balanced. It has apex predators, it has a food web, it has rules, and you're about to break every single one of them because we are simulating the story of what happens if you were a Spinosaurus and you were dropped into the Florida Everglades. Spoiler alert, well, it doesn't go well for anyone involved. So you don't just hatch out of an egg. You hatch during a hurricane. It's August, which is peak storm season in South Florida, and the egg that somehow ended up buried in mud on a tree island in the middle of the Everglades has started to crack. Your first experience of the world outside the shell is wind pushing 90 miles per hour and rain so heavy it's not really rain anymore. It feels like a falling ocean. And when you finally break through your membrane and shell, your first breath is about half water, which is not ideal for a newborn anything. But here's the thing. Your species evolved for this exact kind of nightmare. Back in Cretaceous North Africa, where we have found the regular Spinosaurus, it had to deal with monsoon seasons where flooding was just part of the calendar. Storms would roll through and turn the entire river system into chaos. So hatching into rising water and wind was normal. Your DNA remembers this even if you personally have no idea what's happening. The problem is that you're 3 feet long, you weigh 15 pounds, and the water around is rising at a speed that suggests it has malicious plans for you. Your instinct says get to water because you're built to be an aquatic animal. But right now everything is water and it's moving fast enough to have opinions. You get swept into a current from some overflow from a marsh channel that's swollen past its normal boundaries, and you're paddling with webbed feet you've never used before, thrashing your tail trying to figure out which direction is up. You then slam into a cypress trunk, and it hurts, but you manage to cling there with claws that apparently were designed for exactly this scenario. So you just hold on for 3 straight hours while the storm does whatever storms do when they rage this hard for that long. When it finally passes, you're still alive, barely though. You're exhausted, you're disoriented, and you're alone. Day 1, survived a natural disaster. Most newborns spend their first day figuring out that crying gets them attention. Well, you're an overachiever because you survived a natural disaster that probably in most instances would have taken your life. 3 days have now passed and you still haven't eaten, which is moving from a problem to a crisis because you're not just hungry anymore, you're starving. And there's a functional difference between these two states. Your body is designed to eat constantly. Your metabolism is running hot because you're supposed to be growing, and you're getting weaker every hour. In the Cretaceous rivers where your species evolved, hatchling Spinosaurus had an advantage. The water was thick with giant fish. Bichirs, sawfish juveniles, and these massive coelacanths called Modisonia that could be bigger than you, but there were thousands of them. So catching something was basically guaranteed. Here the fish are small and fast and you have no idea what you're really doing. You try to catch a largemouth bass and you miss completely and faceplant into the mud, which is humiliating even though nobody is watching. You try to catch a gar, which is long and has needle teeth, but it's faster than you and it just leaves. You find a turtle and try to bite it, but it pulls into its shell and you can't crack it yet. Your jaws aren't strong enough. You're exhausted, your body is screaming for food, and at some point hunger overrides every instinct you have and you just start eating vegetation. You start grabbing at sawgrass and swallowing it because your brain has stopped caring about the details. 10 minutes later, you vomit everything up because your digestive system cannot process plants at all. You're a carnivore. This was never going to work. You find a dying fish, something that a gator killed and abandoned because it was too small to bother with, and it's half rotten, and it smells wrong, but you are well past the point of having standards. You eat it. It's your first meal, it tastes like survival and decay, and honestly, you're not really in a position to be picky. And that's when you learn the first rule of the Everglades. If you didn't kill it, something else did, and that something is still there. A few days later, you move to a deeper slough because you figured out that deeper water means you can actually swim instead of just waiting around, and you're starting to understand the basics of hunting. Stand still, sense pressure changes in the water when something moves, and strike fast before it knows you're there. You catch 2 small fish in a row, and you're feeling pretty good about your odds of continued survival. And that's when you sense something big in the water with you. Your first thought is a big fish, which would mean food, so you dive to investigate. It is not a fish. Well, not the usual fish you were expecting, because it's a 9-foot bull shark. Bull sharks are one of the only sharks that hunt in fresh water. They swim up rivers and into swamps, and they go basically anywhere there's enough depth. And they're known for being aggressive in ways that other sharks aren't. In Cretaceous Africa, your ancestors dealt with sharks too. Species like Squalocorax that were about this size. So this threat isn't new to your genetic memory. The problem is that you're 3 weeks old, you're 4 feet long, and this shark isn't looking at you like you're a predator. It's looking at you like you're weird and possibly food. The shark does what's called a test bite, which is how sharks figure out if something is worth eating. It bites your tail, you scream, which is the first real vocalization you've made, and it's this high-pitched distress call that echoes across the marsh and probably terrifies a few waiting birds half a mile away, and you thrash trying to break free. The shark circles back because that's what sharks do. They're efficient hunters and they don't give up easy, and you realize you cannot outswim this thing. So you do the only thing your brain can come up with. You scramble towards shallow water, using your legs and your arms to haul yourself up the slope. Your claws are digging into the mud for traction, and the shark follows because it hasn't decided you're not food yet. It follows you into water that is maybe 2 feet deep, then turn and slash with your clawed hand in what is purely a panic response, and your claws rake across the shark's snout. Sharks have very sensitive noses. This is not a pleasant feeling for the shark, so it retreats. You drag yourself fully onto the mud bank and just lie there, bleeding from the tail bite, breathing hard. This is your first real injury. You just learned the second rule of the Everglades. Even the water isn't safe, which is a significant problem when you are literally built to live in the water. 3 days later, your tail is healing, but it doesn't move quite right anymore. There's a permanent kink in it from where the shark's teeth went through, and you've adjusted your hunting strategy to stay in shallower areas because the shark encounter did something to your brain that suggests maybe deeper water isn't worth the risk right now. You're catching smaller prey. It's less efficient, but it feels safer, and everything would be mostly fine except for one small issue. Blood in the water attracts predators, and an 8-foot alligator has been tracking you, probably for the last hour or so. Gators can smell blood from over a mile away, and you're in what's strategically referred to as a bad spot. Open marsh, water that is only knee-deep on you, and nowhere nearly deep enough to dive and hide. The gator does a threat display. It opens its mouth wide and hisses. You try to back away because you're injured and you very much do not want this fight. The gator then sees weakness and it presses forward. It is aggressive. The rule here is simple. Don't engage when you're hurt. Retreat, survive to hunt another day. And what does the gator do? It charges anyway. So I'm just trying to understand the strategy here. The gator bites down on your already injured tail, and you spin around faster than you thought you could move and rake your claws across its eye in what's pure desperation, not technique. And the gator releases and bellows, and while it's distracted, you lunge forward and bite down on its foreleg. It is not a killing blow. You are not big enough to kill an 8-foot gator, but it hurts. Both of you break apart and both of you retreat. Neither of you want to die today. Nobody wins, but more importantly, you didn't lose. In your natural habitat, young Spinosaurus had to deal with crocodilomorph, which are ancient croc relatives that could grow to 30 feet. So competition for territory and food was just part of life. But here's the difference. Back there, you would have likely had siblings. A whole clutch of hatchlings meant safety in numbers, cooperation, and shared warning calls. Here, you're alone. You then make a sound, low frequency, barely audible to anything nearby. You're calling for something that isn't there and will never respond because you are all alone in this lost world. And just when you think you've figured out how to survive this place, just when you think maybe you understand enough of the rules to keep going, the Everglades decides to remind you that nothing here stays predictable for long. and surviving infancy was apparently just the tutorial level. 6 months have now passed, and you're 10 feet long now, at about 200 pounds, and your tail healed up even though it's got the permanent kink from where the shark decided to test how tasty you were. You figured out how to hunt fish without embarrassing yourself. You know which areas have gators that'll start problems and which ones don't. And honestly, things are starting to feel manageable, which in hindsight should be a warning sign because the Everglades does not do manageable for very long, because the water starts disappearing. Not all at once, but every day you wake up and there's a little less of it. And this is apparently something called the dry season, which happens every year between November and April. South Florida decides rain is optional. For fish, this is bad because they're getting crowded into smaller and smaller pools. For alligators and wading birds, this is actually great because fish packed into tight spaces are easy to catch. For you, this is moving rapidly towards disaster because you are 10 feet long and you need to be in water to hunt the way you're built to hunt, and the water is actively disappearing. Week 1, the sloughs that you've been using get shallower, maybe knee deep on you, and you can still catch fish, but it's harder because there's less room to move and fish can see you coming. Week 2, some pools dry up completely. They're just gone. The fish that were there are either dead or managed to swim to deeper water before it was too late. Week 3, you haven't eaten in 4 days. Your metabolism is still running fast because you're still growing, and starvation is hitting hard enough that you're starting to understand why that gator pressed the fight when you were injured. Hunger makes you do stupid things. You then find a gator hole. It's one of the last deep pools for miles. It's probably 8 feet deep in the center where some alligator dug it out over years. And it is packed with fish and turtles. Everything that survived the dry season seems to be retreating here. There are 3 alligators in this hole, and they have been guarding it. This is their dry season feast. They dug this hole. They have territorial rights under whatever social contract alligators have worked out with each other. The rule is, don't start fights you can't win, especially not 3 against 1. Conserve energy, find food elsewhere, survive smart. And what do? Walk right up at dawn when you're starving and desperate. I'm just trying to understand the long-term plan there, bud. The closest gator, an 8-footer, sees you coming and bellows a warning, which is the politest way it can say, leave or we will have a problem. But you were too hungry to care about being polite. You lunge at it and immediately the other 2 react because apparently gators have a group defense strategy that you did not know about. One of them bites your front right leg while you're focused on the first one, its teeth sinking in deep enough that you feel bone, and you use the only advantage you have, which is mass. You're heavier than any of these gators, so you body slam it into the mud hard enough that it lets go and has to rethink its choices. The second gator goes for your sail, which is a new move. Nobody has tried that before, and it manages to shred part of the membrane, which hurts in ways that you didn't know were possible. You scream and spin and rake your claws across its back. These are 3 long cuts through the armored hide. Then the big one, a 12-footer that's probably older than you are in months, charges in and grabs your neck. Not the throat, but close enough that you're pinned. And this is the moment where you either need to figure something out or you are done. You use your arms, your clawed hands that have mostly been for catching fish and climbing. You grab the big gator's skull on both sides and squeeze, and your claws puncture behind its eyes. All 3 gators retreat, which means you won, but winning cost you 3 new injuries: a leg bite, a torn sail membrane, and a neck wound that is bleeding steadily. You claim the hole and eat for 2 straight hours, fish and turtles and even part of a dead gator from an earlier fight. In Cretaceous North Africa, Spinosaurus had to compete with Dinosaurs on land and multiple different giant crocodile species in water. Fighting for resources was just how things worked, and you just did what your species did for millions of years. You won ugly, and you're still hungry. The gator hole runs low after a week because you've eaten most of what was in it, and you now need another food source, which is when you see something at the water's edge at dusk. It's a white-tailed deer. A doe, it's about 100 pounds. In your natural time period, mammals were the size of rats and stayed hidden in burrows. This thing is the size of multiple fish combined, and it has no idea what you are, so it is not running yet. You try the standard gator ambush: submerge, wait, and lunge from the shallows, and you miss completely because deer reflexes are built for predators that exist in Florida, and you are not one of those. The deer bolts and you try to chase it on land, which goes poorly because your legs are short and your tail drags and you are not built for sprinting. The deer is gone in seconds. That night you try again, but this time you wait near the only water source for miles, and you stay completely still for 3 hours until your legs ache. And when the deer comes back, you lunge from a shallower angle and catch it by the hindquarters. You drag it into the water and hold it there until it stops moving. You just invented a hunting strategy Spinosaurus never needed, because your species had giant fish, but you're not in your world anymore. You're in theirs, and you have learned that you must adapt or die. January hits and a cold front moves through, which happens maybe once a decade in southern Florida, and the temperature drops to 4 degrees Celsius at night for 3 nights straight. You are a reptile. You were not built for this. In Cretaceous North Africa, it was warm year-round, and your species never evolved for cold, and modern crocs handle this by slowing their metabolism down and barely moving. But you're young, and you still need heat to function. The first night you stay in the water because it insulates better than air, but you can't stay submerged forever without drowning. The second night you find a cypress dome where the trees block the wind, and you're shivering, which is your body trying to generate heat, and you can barely move. The third night, you can't hunt because you're too cold and too weak. When the temperature finally rises, you bask in the sun for 6 hours with your sail angled directly at the light, and your sail acts kind of like a solar panel, absorbing heat fast enough that you start to recover. Your sail literally just saved your life. It is not a decoration. It is survival equipment. Welcome to Florida, where the weather is absolutely brutal, hot or cold. The cold then breaks and the wet season starts again, and you're still here. You're tougher now. You've learned what works and what gets you injured, and for the first time since you hatched, you start to feel something close to confidence. But that feeling doesn't last long, because something in the marsh is starting to notice that you're here, and it is bigger than anything you have fought so far. And that bigger something turns out to be yourself. What do I mean? Well, hear me out. 18 months since hatching, and you are 14 meters from snout to tail tip. You are about 8 tons of prehistoric predator that should not exist in 2026, and you are the single most dangerous thing in the Florida Everglades by a margin that is not even close. Alligators see you coming and just leave, which is smart of them. Deer won't go near water during the hours you hunt. Even the invasive pythons, which have basically taken over parts of this ecosystem, stay hidden when you're around. You are the apex predator. You have no competition. You have won, but you're also starving. Here is the problem. You need roughly 40 kilograms of meat per day just to maintain your size. In Cretaceous North Africa, you could hunt a sawfish that weighed 200 kilograms, and that's 5 days of food from one kill. Here, the biggest fish you can reliably find weighs maybe 15 kilograms, which means you need to catch 3 of those every single day. And there aren't that many big fish. Your success is killing you. The ecosystem cannot support something your size, and you've been learning this the hard way for months now. You're hunting in mangrove area near the coast, looking for bigger fish in the brackish water where the fresh water meets the ocean, and you step through dense vegetation and feel pressure around your back leg. It is a Burmese python. It is 18 feet long and has begun to start coiling around you. Pythons kill by constriction. They wrap around their prey and squeeze until the blood stops flowing, and they can put out about 90 pounds per square inch of pressure, which sounds like a lot until you remember that you're 8 tons. It is squeezing your leg, which you can feel, and it's strong, but you drop into the water intentionally and do a death roll. You just start thrashing and spinning, and the python cannot maintain its grip underwater. It lets go, and you grab it in your jaws and shake once. It's over in about 30 seconds. Burmese pythons are invasive here. They've destroyed the mammal populations. They've eaten alligators. They've become the apex predators in their own right. Just like you, they don't belong here, and you just killed one faster than it could process what you were. The Everglades had an invasive species problem, and you are not the solution. You're a worse problem. While you're eating it, you find something inside the python's stomach, an alligator that is half digested, maybe a week old. The food chain here is broken. Invasive python eating native gator, and you eating both. This is not a functional ecosystem anymore. You keep moving towards the coast because your instincts are screaming that bigger prey lives in deeper water, and you end up in a brackish channel that's American crocodile territory. You've killed alligators before, so this should be fine. But then you see it. A 17-foot bull crocodile, probably the biggest one left in Florida. And it doesn't run. American crocodiles are endangered. There's only about 2,000 left of them in the state, and they normally avoid trouble because that's how you survive when your species is that close to extinction. But this male has held this territory for 30 years, and you are not just trouble, you're competition. So he does an aggressive display. He slaps his head against the water and bellows loud enough that birds a mile away go quiet. You lower your head and hiss back. This is posturing. Both of you are hoping the other backs down, but neither of you back down, and that is a quite bold move. The crocodile strikes first. It's faster than you expected, and his jaws clamp onto your shoulder and shake. You feel something crack. You feel your bone break for the first time in your life. Panic then kicks in, and you grab his body with your clawed hands, and your claws sink deep into his hide, and both of you go into a death roll in the water. Thrashing, and the water turns brown with disturbed mud. You can't see anything and you can't breathe, and this is the first time since the shark attack that you've genuinely thought you might die here. But you're bigger, you have the mass advantage, so you use it. You push him into shallower water where you can get leverage. You get your jaws around his throat and you bite down and hold him underwater until he stops moving. When you drag yourself onto the sandbar afterwards, you're bleeding badly from the shoulder wound. It's deep enough that moving your arm sends pain through your whole body, and you just lie there for hours while vultures circle overhead. You just killed the biggest predator in coastal Florida, and your prize is an infected shoulder and no way to treat it. While you're healing, you're staying in deeper water because moving on land hurts too much, and then you sense something in the channel. A small-toothed sawfish. It is 15 feet with that long-toothed rostrum, cutting through the water, and you've never seen one before, but your body knows. Every instinct you have fires at once. Spinosaurus aegyptus ate Onychopristis, a giant sawfish in North Africa 95 million years ago. Scientists know this because they've found Spinosaurus teeth embedded in these fish's fossils, and they were embedded and healed over, which means the sawfish survived long enough for bone to grow around the tooth. This was probably your species' main food source for millions of years, and right now your DNA is screaming that this is what you're supposed to be eating. So you don't think, you just move. You lunge and grab it mid-body, and the rostrum cuts your face as it thrashes, but you don't let go. You hold it underwater until it stops fighting. You drag it to shore and eat, and for the first time since you hatched, you're eating what you were built to eat. Taste is in your genetic code. This feels right in a way nothing else have. Except it is not right, because you're 95 million years away from home, and that was the last sawfish in this area, because this fish is heavily endangered. You just ate the only thing that felt familiar, and it was the last one. 1 year later, your core 60 square mile range is destroyed. The alligator population is down 60% because you've killed over 40 of them and the rest moved to areas that you can't reach. Large fish have gone locally extinct in your hunting zones. Deer now avoid water completely during the hours that you're active. The wading bird colonies relocated after you raided their nests for eggs. You removed the top predators by becoming them, and the system cannot handle you. And now you're starving again because you dominated too well. You have to range further. 60 miles become 100, burning more energy to find less food, and you're getting desperate for the third time in your life. The rule was simple: be the apex predator, control the territory, survive. You followed the rule exactly. What went wrong? Well, quick question. What did you expect to happen when you ate everything? Dawn then breaks over a coastal slough. You're standing in chest-deep water, and your sail is catching the first light, and everything around you is silent. Not because nothing's there, but because everything has learned that where you are, death follows. You make that low-frequency call, the one that you've made since you were a hatchling, the one that is supposed to be used to find your siblings. But there's no response. There will never be a response. In Cretaceous North Africa, Spinosaurus lived in an ecosystem built for giants, abundant prey, other large predators, and a food web that could support animals your size. Here, you're an anomaly. The ecosystem can't sustain you long term. You beat the alligators, the crocodiles, the sharks, the pythons. You've dominated everything. And now you're gonna die here alone. Because being the biggest thing in the swamp doesn't mean you belong in the swamp. You hatched from an egg in the Amazon rainforest, which is a problem because you're a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and this is not where you're supposed to be. Now, technically, there's this whole thing about oxygen levels being way lower today than in the Cretaceous, like 21% now versus maybe 35% back then, which would basically mean you're constantly at high altitude and gasping for air like you climbed Everest, but we're ignoring that because watching a T-Rex slowly suffocate for 20 minutes makes a really boring video. So let's just say you got magic lungs and move on. You're a T-Rex living in our modern world. Here's what you need to understand. Your species evolved to hunt animals the size of trucks in wide open floodplains where you could actually see what you were doing. The Amazon has animals the size of large dogs and the visibility of a closet, but it's filled with vines. You need to eat several tons of meat per month to survive. The biggest thing here weighs about as much as your breakfast used to. So this is the story of what happens when you drop the most powerful land predator in history into a jungle that has no idea you're coming, where everything is wrong, and where the question isn't whether you're dangerous, it's whether you can actually survive long enough to matter. Spoiler alert, it gets a bit complicated. So you crack through your shell, and the first thing that hits you is the heat. And I mean it physically hits you because this isn't the warm subtropical climate your DNA was expecting. This is a permanent sauna that never turns off. Your instincts are screaming at you to recognize certain sounds and smells that should be here, except none of them are here. Because there are no hadrosaurs bellowing in the distance and no other T-Rex nearby. Instead, what you're hearing is howler monkeys screaming from trees like the world's ending and insects buzzing at a volume that is pretty aggressive. You stumble forward on legs that don't quite work yet, trying to figure out why everything smells wrong and why the air feels thick enough to chew on. And you immediately walk face first into a wall of vines and ferns so dense that you can't see 3 feet ahead. Back in Hell Creek, you would have hatched into open floodplains with decent visibility and actual room to move. But the Amazon has decided that oxygen is for sharing and space is a myth. So you're basically stuck in nature's most humid closet. Now, if you're watching right now, you might be wondering, why is the T-Rex in the Amazon? Why not in North America where we originally found the fossils? Well, that's because in modern day, we would not be able to support a T-Rex in North America. Where I grew up, Saskatchewan, the province in Canada where we have found multiple T-Rex fossils, yeah, it gets pretty damn cold there, like minus 45 degrees Celsius during the winter. T-Rex is not surviving that. And based on my research, the Amazon basin is probably the best case scenario where a T-Rex could theoretically live in today's environment. But all of that does not matter because the insects are about to find you. Within minutes, you've got mosquitoes biting any soft skin they can reach and some kind of ant crawling on your foot that stings hard enough to make you hop backward into more vines, which would be embarrassing if anyone was around to see, but thankfully you're completely alone in a jungle that has no idea what you are. You learn very quickly that standing still is not an option, because if you stop moving for more than 30 seconds, something will bite you, which is a fun way to start your life. The hunger kicks in maybe 2 hours after hatching, and your instincts are telling you to hunt for small dinosaurs or large insects or basically anything with decent protein. Except when you look around, all you can see is frogs the size of your toe and birds that won't shut up but also won't come down from the trees. You spot something moving near the water, something brown about the size of a large rat. You decide that's breakfast because you don't have a lot of options here. So you charge at it with all the grace of a drunken toddler and immediately trip over a root. The animal, which you'll later learn is called an agouti, just stares at you for a second before running off into the undergrowth. Which is fair because you're not exactly terrifying when you're 3 feet long and cannot run in a straight line. But you're persistent and also starving, so you keep trying and eventually you manage to corner something near the water's edge. You grab it in your jaws and it's a frog, just a regular frog, and you eat it in one bite, and it tastes like disappointment. This is about to be a theme that you're going to get used to very quick. Over the next few days, you figure out that hunting here requires a completely different skill set than what your genetics prepared you for, because everything is either too small to bother with or too fast to catch or living in trees where you physically cannot reach. And the things you can catch barely provide enough calories to justify the energy you spend catching them. You manage to kill a juvenile rodent at one point, and you feel very proud of yourself until you realize you're still hungry 10 minutes after eating it, which raises some questions about whether this ecosystem can actually support you long term. But you're 2 weeks old, so you're not really thinking about ecosystems or any complex equations like that. You are literally a baby T-Rex. You're just thinking about right now, and right now means food. The heat is relentless in a way that you were not designed for, because back in the Cretaceous, your habitat had seasons and cool periods and actual temperature variation. But the Amazon runs at a constant 85 to 95 degrees with humidity that makes the air feel solid, and you're overheating constantly because your body is built for a climate that doesn't exist anymore. You start spending more time standing in streams just to cool off, which at least puts you near water where other animals come to drink, and you quickly figure out that sunset is when prey gets careless and you can actually ambush things. Your first successful hunt happens at dusk near a riverbed when a capybara, which is basically a giant hamster that weighs about as much as you do right now, waddles down to the water and doesn't notice you standing very still in the shallows. You lunge, you grab it, it makes a horrible squeaking sound and dies. And for the first time since hatching, you actually feel full. This is a good meal. This will hold you full for maybe a day. The math on that is starting to look bad. You're growing fast though. You're putting on weight and height every week, and by the time you're a few months old, you're already the size of a large dog, and things are starting to notice you as a potential threat instead of just the weird lizard. You have a standoff with a juvenile ocelot one morning near your sleeping spot. Both of you are frozen and trying to figure out what the other one is, and after about 30 seconds of intense staring, the cat decides you're not worth the trouble and backs away into the forest. Smart cat. But the territory you're learning is wrong in every way that matters, because the forest is so tight and overgrown that moving through it announces your presence to everything within 100 yards, with branches snapping and vines getting caught on your growing frame. And stealth is basically impossible when you're bulldozing your own path around the jungle. You start using the rivers as highways because they're the only places with actual space to move, and you notice that river corridors have more prey traffic anyway since everything needs to drink. So you're accidentally learning the most efficient hunting strategy available. The disease situation is getting weird too, because you've got things living on you and probably in you that your immune system has zero manual for. You got ticks burrowing into soft spots between scales and some kind of intestinal situation that you can't see but can definitely feel. And every time you drink from the river, you're probably picking up new parasites, but what are you supposed to do? Not drink? You're already spending half the time dealing with infections from random scratches that won't heal right in this humidity. Little cuts that just sit there and fester because apparently the Amazon has decided that healing is optional. By the time that you are 6 months old, you're pushing 200 pounds and starting to understand something that your DNA never prepared you for, which is that being a T-Rex in the wrong time period means that you're simultaneously the most dangerous thing around and also completely out of your depth. You're winning every fight against prey that barely feeds you, and you're losing a slow war against an environment that treats you like an invader, because that's exactly what you are. But you are about to hit a growth spurt that's going to change the entire dynamic here, because in a few months you're going to weigh literal tons, and when you do, every single predator in this jungle is going to have the same realization at the same time, which is that they're not the apex predator anymore, and they never will be again. The food situation isn't going to get better, but at least nothing will be able to stop you from taking what's there. It's 2 years in, and you're now 12 feet tall at the hip, weighing somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 tons, and the entire jungle has started to notice that the rules have changed because you are officially the largest land animal in South America by a margin that's honestly embarrassing for everything else. There is no evolutionary context for you here, no genetic memory in any predator's brain that says when you see this, run. So the first few encounters get weird because animals keep trying to apply their normal threat assessment to you and it just doesn't work. Case in point, you're walking along a river at dawn when you smell blood and fresh meat, and when you follow your nose you find a male jaguar standing over a dead tapir looking very pleased with himself. He's maybe 220 pounds of spotted muscle and bone-crushing bite force, the apex predator of this entire region, and he sees you coming and does this thing where he tenses up and shows his teeth because that's what's always worked before when something wants his food. You walk up, you grab the tape in your jaws, you lift all 500 pounds of it off the ground, and you carry it about 20 feet away before you start eating. The jaguar just stands there. He is supposed to be the biggest problem in this jungle, and you just mugged him in broad daylight. You took his breakfast, and there is genuinely nothing he can do about it because you outweigh him by a factor of 60, and you could step on him by accident, and that would be that. After a minute, he turns around and walks into the forest, and you eat his tapir in maybe 6 bites, which feels efficient until you realize this is the biggest prey item available in this entire ecosystem, and it barely fills you up for 3 days. The math on this is getting worse, not better, because in the Cretaceous, one Triceratops leg had more meat than this entire animal, and you could feast for a week off a single kill. But here you're looking at needing to do this twice a week minimum just to maintain your weight. And the Amazon only had so many tapirs, and they're getting harder to find because word is spreading in the prey community that something new and horrible is patrolling the rivers. You've started hunting at night because that's when the tapirs move, and also because the daytime heat is trying to kill you, and you spend most of your afternoons standing chest deep in river water just trying not to overheat because your body was designed for a climate with cool seasons, and the Amazon doesn't believe in seasons, just one season of hot. Rivers have become your whole world at this point, your highways and your hunting grounds and your only relief from the heat, and you've learned that if you wait near certain bends in the late evening, the prey comes to you because everything needs to drink. Capybaras show up in groups, and you can sometimes grab 2 or 3 before the rest scatter. Deer come down at dusk and they're easy pickings. Pecaris travel in herds, but they're getting wise to you, and now they send scouts ahead to check if the coast is clear. Which brings us to the caiman incident. You're wading through a deeper section of river one afternoon, maybe chest deep in murky water, and something hits your leg hard and fast, and suddenly there's teeth sunk into your right thigh, and the pain is immediate and sharp. You look down and there's a 16-foot black caiman attached to you, maybe 1,000 pounds of reptile and pure muscle, and it's doing that thing crocodilians do where they bite down and try to roll to tear flesh, except you weigh 6 tons. And you're not going anywhere. This is a decision on the caiman's part, and the caiman has been the apex predator of these rivers for its entire life, taking jaguars when they come to drink, crushing capybaras without effort, and now it has bitten something that's treating the attack as an inconvenience rather than a death sentence. You reach down with your jaws, you grab the caiman somewhere around its midsection, and you bite down with enough force to crack through its armored hide and into the organs underneath. And the caiman lets go of your leg immediately, but it's too late because you've already crushed several of its ribs and punctured something important. The caiman dies. You drag it to shore and you eat it because you are not picky about what kind of meat you're getting as long as you're getting meat. And honestly, the caiman tastes fine and provides a decent amount of calories. Your leg has puncture wounds that are going to get infected in this humidity because everything gets infected here, but you'll heal because you're built tough and your species has survived worse. The caiman probably thought it was making a reasonable choice based on available information, and technically it followed all the rules that had kept it alive for 40 years. And those rules got it killed in under a minute because they were written for a different world. The ecosystem did not approve. You are fully nocturnal now, sleeping through the midday heat under whatever shade you can find and hunting from dusk until dawn. and you've claimed maybe 50 miles of river as your territory because you need that much space to find enough food. Other predators have learned your schedule and they avoid you. Jaguars are shifting their ranges away from your core area. Caimans are staying in deeper water when they hear you coming. And you've left your scent everywhere through a combination of marking and the fact that you smell terrible to everything with a working nose. There's this moment sometimes at night where you stop and scan the area and some part of your brain will register that you should be hearing other T-Rexes, maybe smelling their scent markers, maybe competing for territory or mates. There's nothing, and there never will be anything, because you're alone here in a way that goes deeper than just being physically alone. You don't think about it in those terms because you are a dinosaur. An abstract thought isn't your strong suit, but the instinct notices the absence. You are all alone in this lost world. But the health situation is becoming a theme, and not a good one. Ticks are burrowing in everywhere they can reach. Some kind of fungal patch is growing on your side that won't go away no matter how much you scratch it against trees, and your foot pads are getting soft from being wet constantly, which means every sharp rock or stick you step on goes deeper than it should. You're surviving, and you're dominant, and you're winning every fight, but you're also losing a slow war of attrition against an environment that treats you as a foreign object that needs to be broken down and recycled back into the jungle. And here's where we need to talk about what dominance actually means when you're the only one of your kind, because you've reached the point where nothing can challenge you and the food chain has completely rearranged itself around your presence. But that doesn't answer the question of whether this is sustainable or if you're just slowly starving while being king of the jungle. The ecosystem has adjusted, the prey has learned to hide, and you're about to find out if being the apex predator is enough when the world you're dominating was never built to support you in the first place. It's year 3 and the power dynamic has been settled for a while now. You are, without question, the apex predator here, and the interesting part is that this status was never actually contested, because there's nothing in this jungle capable of challenging you, even if it wanted to. A full-grown jaguar weighs 220 pounds on a good day, and you could accidentally step on one while turning around. Caimans have sharp teeth and strong jaws, but you've already killed and eaten 3 of them, and the anacondas take one look at your leg and decide they have better things to do. You've achieved complete dominance, which sounds impressive until you realize dominance just means you get first pick of food that barely exists in the quantities you need. The prey has learned though. They've adapted their behavior in ways that make your job much harder, because tapirs that used to move at dusk now only come out in the dead of night, and they stick to the thickest cover that they can find. Peccaries have started traveling in even bigger herds because their math says there's safety in numbers, which is wrong because you can grab multiple pigs in one attack, but you can't fault them for trying. Capybaras have gotten paranoid to the point where they post sentries that whistle the second they see movement, giving everyone else time to hit the water before you get close. You've created what scientists would call a landscape of fear, which is just a fancy way of saying everything has terrified you and has reorganized its entire life around not being where you are. But here's the thing about being terrifying. It makes hunting harder when your prey spends all day hiding from you. So you've shifted more towards scavenging because it turns out your nose can pick up dead things from miles away, and dead things don't run. You find a drowned deer caught in river debris, and that's breakfast. You stumble onto a peccary that died of something and you eat it anyway because you're not in a position to be picky. You smell blood and find a jaguar kill, and you just take it while the jaguar watches from a tree branch looking like his whole worldview just collapsed. This is actually more efficient than hunting calorie-wise, which raises questions about what you're supposed to be doing here, but hey, efficiency's efficiency. Free calories is free calories. Nobody's gonna turn down some scraps. The food math is getting harder to ignore at this point because you need roughly 500 pounds of meat per month just to maintain your current weight. And tapirs are the biggest thing available, and you're lucky if you find 3 per month, which means the rest of your calories have to come from dozens of smaller kills. You're hunting constantly, patrolling constantly, and the energy you're spending to find food is starting to approach the energy you're getting from the food, which is the kind of equation that ends badly if you keep going. Back in Hell Creek, you could kill 1 triceratops and rest for a week while you digested a few thousand pounds of meat. But here you kill something and you're hungry again in 2 days. Your body is keeping the score too, and the score is not great. because you've got chronic skin infections from cuts that won't heal in this humidity, ticks embedded in places that you can't reach, and some kind of foot rot situation from standing in the water all day. And again, that fungal patch on your side has spread despite your best efforts to scrape it off on trees. You're still massive and still dangerous, but you're wearing down in ways that matter, getting thinner than you should be, and moving a little slower than you used to. The wet season hits, and suddenly the rivers rise 30 feet, and your whole territory turns into a giant flooded forest, and prey concentrates on the few patches of high ground that aren't underwater, which should make hunting easier, except you're also wading through chest-deep water constantly. You have 3 more separate encounters with caimans during this period, and you kill 2 of them, and the 3rd one gets smart and leaves. But each encounter means more bite wounds and more chances for infection, and you are starting to collect scars. So let's now talk about what could actually kill you. Because obviously it's not the other animals, we've established that. It's the environment itself and the slow accumulation of problems that you can't solve by just biting them. A serious infection could do it. Sepsis spreading from one of your many wounds until your organ starts shutting down. A bad fall could also do it, breaking a leg or a hip in a way that leaves you unable to hunt, which turns into starvation over the course of weeks. Getting stuck in deep mud could do it. Your weight would be working against you as you exhaust yourself trying to get free. You survived 65 million years in a mass extinction just to potentially die of what is essentially trench foot. The territory that you've claimed along the river has changed in your presence. Prey populations are now dropping as you kill them faster than they can reproduce. Predator populations are dispersing as jaguars and caimans move to areas where they don't have to compete with you, and scavenger populations are going up because you leave scraps that smaller animals can pick over. You've created a dead zone of about 60 miles where everything is quieter and more cautious and fundamentally rearranged around the fact that you now exist. But this ecosystem will reset the moment you die, because you're the only one and there will never be another one. No offspring to carry forward, no population to establish, just you and however long you can keep this going. Here is the verdict. Can a T-Rex survive in the Amazon? Yes, you can, and you are. You've been doing it for 3 years, and you could probably keep doing it for several more if nothing catastrophic happens. Can you thrive? No, absolutely not. The food situation is barely sustainable, and your health is declining, and you're winning every fight that matters while losing a war against the heat and disease and hunger. Can you dominate? Yes, you've done that. You are the apex predator, and nothing else is even close. But the problem was never whether you were strong enough or dangerous enough. The problem is whether there's enough food in this jungle to keep 6+ tons of predator fed, and whether your body can handle permanent heat and humidity. And the answer to both is barely and not really. You are the most dangerous thing in this forest, and the forest is still killing you. Just slowly, using weather and parasites and the simple fact that you need more calories than this place was ever designed to provide. You're alone. You'll always be alone, and the question isn't whether you can survive. It's how long you can keep doing this before something small finally adds up to something fatal. It turns out being able to kill everything doesn't mean everything can't kill you back. It just means they have to be patient and stack the odds against time instead of using teeth. You open your eyes for the first time in a lost world that has no name for what you are. The air is thick, not unpleasantly, but a familiar thick. Heat and water and things alive are in enormous numbers all around you. Your legs are steady. Your eyes lock onto movement immediately, automatically, without you deciding to look. They're forward-facing, sharp, and built for judging distance in fractions of a second. The sickle claw on each foot is already raised. You never had to learn that. You were born knowing. The terrain is flat, flooded at the edges, and dry at the center. Green in every direction. You have never seen this place before. But some older part of you, the part running on 150 million years of identical terrain, says you have, but that part is lying to you. This place has 200,000 ambush predators in the water, a snake that kills without venom, and a competitor roughly your size who has been the top land predator here for centuries and is not interested in sharing, and something you cannot see, cannot smell, and you will never be able to fight. But you have no idea about any of that yet, so you take your first step. You are Deinonychus, and we're here to answer one question. Can a Deinonychus survive in the modern Florida Everglades? Let's find out. Whoa, hold on. One thing before this actually starts, a 2020 study looked at what Deinonychus was eating at different points in its life. And what they found was that the young ones were eating totally different foods from the adults, which is not what you see in packs. Pack hunters eat the same things. These didn't. So this video is just a single Deinonychus, completely alone, which is what the science actually says right now. Yes, Jurassic Park disagrees. Jurassic Park also thought a T-Rex lost track of you if you just stood still. So I just want to say that before we get into this, that if anybody is here to comment hate comments on why there isn't a pack, this is why. To the people already typing, actually in the comments right now, there is a full Velociraptor pack video coming that's going to be made specifically for you, because there isn't a lot of evidence for pack hunting, but there isn't a lot of evidence against it. It is still up in the air. So I'm just going to make a Velociraptor video in the future, and that's going to be a pack hunting one. You're welcome. Until then, it is just you out here and everything in this place that doesn't know what you are yet. The shell cracks from the inside, and the first thing that registers isn't light or sound. It's heat, that immediate raw heat pressing in from all sides at once, and a smell so thick and layered and alive that your brain doesn't even try to sort it. It just files it under everything and moves on, and then the rest comes in at full volume. You push through the last of the shell, and the world opens up around you. It's flat and wet and green in every direction, with shallow water holding the early light and sawgrass stretching out further that you can't really process. And the sound is just enormous. Not dangerous, just enormous. There are hundreds of bird species going at the same time, all completely unbothered by the fact that something just arrived in this ecosystem that hasn't existed on this planet for an extremely long time. Your feathers are still wet and they're plastered flat, and you shake them off, and something shifts. You realize you're lighter than makes sense. Not small, but just efficient. Like your body was put together with the specific goal of moving fast, and the weight budget was managed accordingly. Your bones are hollow, and the whole structure is reinforced in exactly the right places. And it runs better than anything heavier would. And your body already knows this before you do, because the first thing you do once you're clear of the shell is find something that's moving and lock onto it. Your eyes do this on their own. Something small and brown cuts through the grass about 10 feet out, and your head turns, and you have the exact distance before your brain finishes the thought. You stand there looking at something you haven't decided to chase yet, and it just feels right. Like every part of the machine is running the way it was supposed to run. Your body has a plan, and that plan is confident. That plan was written for a world that no longer exists, and that plan does not know that yet. The terrain is flat and warm and flooded at the edges, and none of it has done anything to you yet. The working theory you have right now is that everything is fine, but everything is not fine, but we'll get to that later. For now, you move through the shallows and the hammock edges and the stretches of open ground between the cypress domes, and the Everglades is just the world, and the world is warm and full of things that move. You are roughly 2 feet long at this point, which sounds unimpressive for what you're eventually going to become, but you also hatched already knowing how to use the raised sickle claw on each foot, which is a head start that most things in this swamp cannot claim. The bar you are starting from is higher than it looks. Not that you're thinking about that. You're following the plan. The plan in the first couple of weeks says find what moves and eat it. So that's what you do. Insects first, because the Everglades has insects the way some places have weather. They are constant and everywhere. Like there's so many insects. A dragonfly lands 2 feet from you and you pin it before it finishes folding its wings. And the precision at that distance is genuinely excellent. The dragonfly is very much not excellent at avoiding you. You are a top predator, but you're eating a dragonfly. You see a contradiction there? And then the frogs, because there are lots of frogs. A lot with small lizards, a water snake that tried to go around you and made a mistake about it, and you eat all of this, and it's all small, and it's all exactly what a juvenile Deinonychus would eat. The science on this is solid. Scientists worked it out from the chemistry baked into fossilized teeth, which is a sentence that means nothing to a young raptor because you can't understand language, because you are a recently hatched dinosaur eating frogs in a Florida swamp. This is the life you live now. But then the tengu comes. The Argentine black and white tengu is a large invasive lizard. It's slow on open ground, and it's up to 4 feet long, and currently living throughout South Florida because at some point someone released a pet into the wild, and then the tengus thought that they could just make thousands more. You find one rooting around in the dirt at the edge of a dry hammock, and it looks up at you with the expression of an animal that has never once been required to develop a response for this type of situation. And you take it down in under 3 seconds, and it is by far the most significant thing you've eaten since hatching. And for a moment, the whole plan feels like it's working right. The plan is to be the top predator of the Florida Everglades. The first real kill was 4 feet of slow, confused lizard that was actively just rooting around in some dirt. So, quick question, apex of what exactly? But you don't speak question, and the tengu is dead, and you eat it, and that's a win. You don't know any different. These weeks feel like the world making sense, and in a way, they are. They just won't feel that way later by comparison. The easy part ends on an unremarkable evening in the sawgrass. You're moving through the grass at the edge of a cypress dome in the last of the light, watching the ground for movement, and there is something motionless in the grass 2 feet ahead, and you don't see it because still is not what you're scanning for. You step too close and it moves fast from directly beside your foot, and you don't have time to process it. Your legs just take you sideways, and there's a point of pressure on your lower leg, and then you are 4 feet from where you're standing, and you aren't sure how you got there. You look at the spot and find that the snake has already settled. The leg doesn't hurt for about 30 seconds, and then it does. And those 30 seconds before it starts are somehow the worst part of it all, because the venom breaks down tissue, and you caught a small dose. Probably not enough to kill you, but enough that over the next 3 days, your lower leg swells badly, and you find a dry hollow in the cypress roots, and you stay there. You don't hunt, you wait. Whatever is happening to your leg either stops or it doesn't. It stops. Slowly. By day 4, you're moving again. Not well, but you're moving, and the wound closes over the following week. And here is the part that matters. You don't know what hit you. You don't understand what a venomous snake is. What you have now is a specific unease about grass that sits too still, which is kind of confusing because this ecosystem is almost entirely made of still grass, and it's going to make you scared of that grass. The Everglades just gave you your first lesson. There are no instructions here. And 6 days after the leg heals, you meet the alligator. There is a shallow pool at the edge of a cypress dome with small fish visible near the bank, and you're hungry and your leg is working, and you step to the water's edge and your eyes go straight to the fish, and they do not go to the 2 objects floating 15 feet out that your brain registers as just debris. They are not debris. The water then explodes. The subadult alligator, about 6 feet long and young enough that it is not the largest version of this problem, but it's absolutely still the worst thing you've encountered in your entire short life. It comes off the bottom, moving sideways and fast, and you go left hard and your right hand claw catches on something submerged. Vegetation or root, it doesn't matter. And for 3 full seconds, you are pulling against that snag with the water churning loud and close and right behind your back leg. And then you were on the bank. You don't know how, you were just on the bank, breathing, and the alligator is already settling back into the pool. And the fish are still there, and you are absolutely not going back in. If you're watching this right now and thinking that you would have spotted the alligator, you wouldn't have. 2 bumps in murky water looks exactly like 2 bumps in murky water. That is its whole hunting strategy. It has worked without interruption for 37 million years at minimum, and it will work on you again if you give it the chance. You then stand at the water's edge for a long time. The tango seems like it was a lot easier in retrospect. You get through the first year small and cautious and carrying 2 lessons the Everglades handed you without explanation, but something has been building the whole time. You are not the same size as you were 6 months ago, and the prey that you've been eating is starting to feel like just the warm-up, because the Everglades built this place for a different size of creature. You are almost there. The deer doesn't know you're there until you're already moving. You've been working toward it for 20 minutes through the sawgrass at the hammock edge, staying downwind, keeping your profile low. The whole time your brain has been running the same calculation it runs on everything. Distance, angle, your window of opportunity, go. The deer is a Florida whitetail browsing at the cypress line where the hammock drops into the shallows. And it's smaller than what your DNA tells you large prey should look like. It's maybe 60 pounds, and the number your brain comes back with is this works. So you go. You leave the ground and land on the deer's flank, and the sickle claws drive into the haunch. Not to cut, but to anchor, because the whole point is to hold on while the deer panics and pulls and tries to throw you. And the arm feathers spread wide the moment you make contact, your whole body adjusting automatically around the deer's movement. And the jaws go for the neck, and for about 4 seconds, this is going exactly the way it was supposed to go. And then the deer makes a decision. It runs into the water, heading for the open slough on the far side of the cypress dome, and you're still on it because letting go means losing the kill, and your grip is still good and the plan says hold, so you hold. And now you're chest deep in murky warm water with your claws locked into the deer's hind. The deer is strong and scared, and the water is slowing you both, but not the same amount. Then the pressure changes. Not from the deer, but from somewhere to your left, in the water before you see it. And when you do see it coming fast from the far bank, you let go. You haul yourself back to the bank and stand there dripping and watch the alligator collect the deer you bled. It doesn't acknowledge you. This was not a confrontation. You were not part of this transaction in any way the alligator cared about. You executed the hunt correctly. The deer bled, you let go when it changed, and the alligator, which has been in that channel since before you crossed it the first time and will be there long after you stop crossing it, got a free meal because you drove the deer directly into it. You were its Uber Eats. So that happened. You then find a feral hog near a dry hammock edge that evening. A young one that's separated from the group, and you take it without much trouble. And you do not think about the deer, but you also do not cross that channel at feeding time again. Some lessons don't need to be said out loud. The hog had no lesson attached to it. The Everglades doesn't flag everything it adds to you. Some things just get in quiet. The only way you would know is if you had a way to track something invisible, and you don't. You find that the Everglades has a rhythm, and it takes most of your first full year to learn it. But once it clicks, the whole ecosystem makes a different kind of sense. The wet season arrives in May and doesn't stop for months. The water rises, and what was spread across your territory is suddenly pushed onto the same small patches of high ground. Hammock islands, pine edges, the elevated strips between the cypress domes, and all of it arrives at once. Deer, hogs, raccoons, all crowded into the same few acres by the same water, all moving around each other in close quarters. All significantly less attentive than if they'd normally be because the flood is already a problem and you are a newer, more confusing problem that they don't know about yet. The wet season hunting is consistent. It's good even on the right days when the water has pushed everything tight and you know which hammocks hold the most pressure. You start to map it. You start to remember which spots produce and which ones are more trouble than they're worth. And the territory you're building in your head becomes something more detailed than just landmarks. It's a calendar, a pattern, a set of known relationships between the water level and where the prey is going to be. But the dry season is something else entirely. November arrives and the water starts pulling back. And what concentrates in the remaining pools isn't just fish. It's the birds that follow the fish. Herons, egrets, ibises, wood storks, tens of thousands of them, packed into the shallows with their heads down, all focused on what's directly under the water. And they are so locked in that you walk through the outer edge of a flock and 3 of them don't move until you are 6 feet away. Yes. 6 feet. Every bird in this ecosystem has an anti-predator response built over millions of years. And that response is the same for all of them. Leave before the threat gets close. But that response was only built for everything that was here before you arrived. But that's not your problem, so you just manipulate it. You learn to use that. You approach from downwind along the outer edge of the flock. You're slow and low, and the birds that notice leave, and the birds that don't are just there. And individually, they're small, a heron, an ibis, but there are thousands of them, and you take 2 or 3 in a morning, and the energy cost is almost nothing compared to the deer hunt. By your 3rd dry season, you know exactly which sloughs concentrate the most birds, and you know the window before they wise up and start leaving earlier. And you work it every year. And your evolutionary history has never heard of a waiting bird, but it doesn't matter at all. This is good eating. This is good food. But the channel that you've been crossing twice a week starts catching up with you on a cold morning in the 3rd year. It's a tight crossing. It's a couple feet deep at most, and you've used it so many times that your body barely registers it as a decision anymore. Step in, step across, step out. You're moving through it, and you're thinking about the slough on the other side when the alligator hits you from the left. And what registers first is not pain, but pressure. Wrong and directional and coming from somewhere that has no business applying force to your arm. And then the grip closes, and it closes completely, and the water is coming up towards your face, and you understand immediately. And the part of your brain that processes logic, that something has you. It is pulling you down, and the window to solve this is very, very short. Your right foot finds the fold at the corner of the jaw. Not the eye, not the skull, but the soft hinge where the muscle sits thin, and you drive the sickle claw in hard. The grip changes for half a second. It loosens just enough, and you rip the arm free and drag yourself up the far bank, and you don't stop moving until you're well clear of the water. And then you stop and look at the arm. Thankfully, it's still attached. That's the first thing you notice. But everything after that takes much longer to process. You spend 2 weeks on a dry hammock, not hunting with the arm and letting it do whatever it's going to do. You take smaller other prey in the meantime. Birds, frogs, the occasional juvenile hog that doesn't require full reach. The wound closes slowly and the arm comes back. Mostly. There's a pain in it on cold mornings that wasn't there before. A stiffness on the reach that doesn't clear as fast as it used to. And you have no way to understand what that means, so you just adjust around it and keep moving. The arm heals into a different version of what it was, which is not the same as healing back. Your immune system, which has been quietly running against 3 years of pathogens it has no record of and no evolutionary answer for, adds this to the list of things to protect you from and keeps going. You have a territory now. The alligators know your crossings. The prey know you exist. The Everglades has filled you into the food web, and the food web has moved on, and everything feels settled. But this is the part right before it isn't, because what is about to happen will change you and fundamentally the Everglades for the rest as your life as you know it. Because the dry season arrives to you for the third time, and you know exactly what to do with it. The territory has been yours for over a year now, not on paper, but in the way that actually matters, which is that everything in it has adjusted around you being here. None of this was negotiated, it just happened. The way it happens when two animals are both capable of running the numbers. The bird flocks at the southern sloughs have started lifting before you arrive from the east, so you come from the north now, and that approach will keep working for another week or two before they adjust again. And this is the ongoing back and forth between you and this whole place. For the first time since you hatched, you are consistently ahead of it. By the third dry season, you are close to full size. Your body has settled into what it was always building towards, and the ecosystem has adjusted to you the way things adjust to anything that keeps not dying. You know which hammocks fill with deer after a 3-day rain, and which channels run shallow enough to cross fast, where the hogs root before dawn, and how close you can get before the lead sow gets uneasy. You have built a specific working knowledge of a place that was not built to have you in it, and it is working, and your ribs from earlier this year have gone from sharp to dull. And based on the current evidence, things are going fine. But that's just on the current evidence, not what is about to happen. It's 6 days into the dry season and you're moving through a hardwood hammock at first light when the python comes off the ground from your right, and the coil is around your midsection before you've processed what hit you. And what registers first is not the pain, but that pressure again. Complete, directional, and immediate. And then you try to exhale, and that exhale stops halfway through. This is a new feeling for you. So you drive the sickle claw into the python's body and the coils tighten. A second strike and they tighten again. A third and the pressure increases and the exhale still won't finish. And this is the point where having a plan stops being useful. So you stop having one and drive the claw in a fourth time, lower and harder, into something that gives differently. And that pressure shifts. It's not gone, it's shifted. There's a big difference, and right now that difference is the entire margin between this story continuing or this being the ending right here. The shift is enough to move in, and you roll, and the stiffened tail swings hard as a counterweight, and you use both arms even though the left one pulls on the bad reach, and your arm feathers press flat against the python's body as you work. And it is not clean or fast. It is 15 minutes of finding out which one of you runs out of options first. At the end of 15 minutes, you are standing over 14 feet of python that has stopped moving, bleeding from 6 places, and every full breath catches somewhere in your ribs that you have no name for and no way to address. If you were capable of understanding, you would realize this thing just constricted you and broke your ribs. You eat the python over the next 2 days without moving far, and most of the wounds close over the following week, and the rib sensation goes from sharp to dull, and then you are well enough to hunt again. You ate the thing that almost killed you. There's almost an irony to it. The panther you know of in the area has been tightening its circuit around your eastern boundary for 2 seasons. And a dry year has pulled the deer numbers down, and there is no longer enough range for both of you to operate without the overlap becoming something that needs to be resolved. And it gets resolved on a Friday morning when the panther drops from a branch onto your back, and the first thing you register is weight, downward weight, that's sudden, the kind that's trying to flatten you before anything else happens. And it goes for the back of your neck because that is what it knows how to do, and your spin catches the bite on your shoulder instead. And it leaves 4 deep tracks from the canine teeth that land 4 inches from the spine. And you drive the sickle claw in and the panther releases, and it backs towards the tree line with the controlled energy of something that isn't done yet. It's just figuring you out. So you chase it for 40 meters, and it doesn't come back that morning. The standard between predators in a shared terrain is both animals register each other, both animals adjust, and nobody commits to direct contact unless there is no other option. Because a predator that takes a bad injury doesn't eat, and a predator that doesn't eat stops being a predator. The fourth dry season then runs the same calendar as the third, with the same sloughs, the same flocks, the same approach angles. But your body isn't running on the same calendar anymore. The range that you cover in a day is shorter, and that means fewer of your hunting spots that you can use to produce food. And that means more mornings that come up empty, and a predator that's eating less runs slower. And a predator that runs slower loses its grip it would have held clean a year ago. And you stand at the bank and watch the deer hit the water, and you do not go in after it. The panther has been taking back the hammock boundary to the east, just a little ground at a time, and a year ago you would have pushed back before the line moved. You don't push back now. The line has moved. You've both settled into the new version without any discussion, and the settling came easy, and that is the part that should concern you if you were capable of being concerned about it. The hunting still works on the good days, and the good days still come. The territory is still mostly yours in the ways that matter, but the alligator crossing feels different now, and not because the alligators have changed. We are now back to the hammock from the very start of your journey, and in the water below the hammock has an alligator in it. The standard size, the kind you've been crossing around for 3 years, and it is closer to the bank than any alligator has been in the last 2 years of you holding your ground. Your instincts fire, the sickle claw lifts, and your legs load. And the signal, the one that used to arrive before the threat finished its first move, takes just a beat longer than it used to, and the alligator is already at the bank. You survived every single thing this place that came at you. Every single one. If you're sitting there right now trying to work out what you would have done differently, there's nothing. You did everything right, but it just wasn't that kind of problem. Everything that came at you failed. The cottonmouth in year 1, both alligators, the python that coiled around your chest for 15 minutes, the panther that dropped out of a tree, all of it came for you and none of it could end you. You built a real territory in a place that was not built to have you in it, out of instincts that were running before any of this ecosystem existed, and it worked, but not by luck. You made it work. What's ending it now was never trying to. What's about to end your story was never trying to end anything. It got in through a wound that you don't remember, from water you drank before you knew what was in the water, from meat you ate, from animals carrying things they didn't know that they were carrying. And it has been in you since before you had a territory. Maybe the first week of your life, maybe the first hog you killed on the ground while your arm was still bleeding. And so as you get older, you get a little bit slower, a little bit weaker, and a little less attentive. And you learn the Everglades never had to beat you. It just had to be the Everglades with all of its sicknesses and parasites and all of it that comes with just living in this environment. And that is what always ends an apex predator's story. So you sit there and you lay down just like you have every night before, except this time when the sun rises, it will be the morning that you don't wake up. The year is today, somewhere in the modern Amazon basin, and you are being born. This is, scientifically speaking, impossible, because you are a titanboa, which means your species has been extinct for roughly 60 million years. And extinct animals are not supposed to give birth, but here you are, sliding out of your mother in a flooded forest where the water is 27 degrees Celsius, which is about 5 degrees cooler than you need to function properly. And you weigh 30 kilograms, which makes you both the largest newborn snake in history and somehow the most likely thing in this swamp to die in the next 10 minutes. Your mother leaves. She does this immediately because snakes do not do childcare, which is the parenting strategy that has worked for 100 million years and will not be changing today. You are 2 meters long. You are alone. And you are in the modern Amazon, which is full of animals that have no idea what you are. And in nature, confusion usually leads to violence. Honestly, in humanity too. Something is moving in the reeds. The water is warm, but not warm enough for you. Your life started 5 seconds ago, and the first decision you need to make is whether that thing in the reeds is food or whether you are the food. If you survive the next 5 minutes, you might live long enough to become a 1-ton apex predator. If you don't, you'll become a data point about why extinct animals should stay extinct. The clock is running. So you make the right choice and sink lower in the water instead of investigating. The thing in the reeds is a spectacled caiman, about 2 meters long, which makes it exactly your size. And in nature, when 2 predators are the same size, the rule is simple. Whoever strikes first gets to be the one who eats instead of being eaten. It hasn't seen you yet because caimans have decent eyesight, but you're partially submerged and also you look like a stick, which is your only survival strategy right now since you were born roughly 4 minutes ago and haven't had time to develop better ones. You sink lower in the water and your body does something it's never done before. which is move on purpose instead of just flailing around like a garden hose someone dropped. Your muscles contract in this S pattern that propels you backwards into a root system, and you wedge yourself between two submerged logs, where the water is darker and smells like rotting plants. The caiman swims past, hunting for fish, completely unaware that it just avoided getting roasted in this video's comment section. This is your home now, and it's a pile of underwater sticks. Your body temperature is dropping because you're cold-blooded, which is a medical term that means that you don't make your own heat. You have to steal it from the environment, and right now the environment is 27 degrees Celsius when you need it to be at least 30. If you were a mammal, you would just shiver and burn calories until you warmed up, but you are not a mammal. So instead, you're getting slower and dumber with each passing minute, which is a real problem when you're surrounded by things that want to eat you. There's a log above the surface about 2 meters away. The sun is hitting it directly, and you can see heat shimmer coming off the wood, which means it's warm, which means you need to get on it immediately or you're going to become too cold to move, and then something will find you, and the experiment of putting a titanboa in the modern Amazon will conclude after 6 minutes. You push off from the roots and swim towards the log, and swimming is easier than you expected because your body remembers how to do this even though you've never done it before, which is what instinct means. You reach the log and try to pull yourself up onto it, but your body is 2 meters of muscle that weighs 30 kilograms and you don't have arms, so instead you just sort of flop against it like someone's trying to load a heavy rug into a truck. This takes 4 tries. On the 5th try, you make it onto the log and immediately feel the heat soaking into your scales, and your body starts working correctly again, and you realize that you've been functionally brain damaged for the last 10 minutes because being cold makes you stupid. You stay on that log for 3 hours, not moving, just absorbing heat like a solar panel. And during those 3 hours, you watch the swamp and start to understand how it works. A capybara comes to drink and a caiman tries to grab it, but the capybara sees it coming and bolts into the forest. A heron stabs a fish. An anaconda, bigger than you, way bigger, slides through the water hunting for something you can't see. Everything here is either hunting or being hunted, and there's no middle option. There's no retirement plan, and there's no days off. The ecosystem does not negotiate. You're hungry now, which is a new feeling, and hunger in a snake is different than hunger in a mammal because you don't get hungry every few hours. You get hungry every few days or weeks depending on what you ate last. But right now you've never eaten anything, so your body is running on whatever nutrients you absorbed from your mother before birth, which is running out. You need food in the next 24 hours or you're going to start digesting your own muscles. There's a fish in the shallows below your log. It's some kind of catfish about 30 centimeters long, and it's swimming in slow circles looking for smaller fish to eat, which means it's distracted. You slide off the log as quietly as possible, which isn't very quiet because you still don't know how your body works, and you sink below the surface and wait. The catfish doesn't notice you. You are learning a very important rule right now, which is that most animals are not paying attention most of the time, and you strike. Your head shoots forward and your jaw is open and you miss completely, because striking is a skill that requires practice and you have no practice, and the catfish vanishes into deeper water so fast it's almost funny. You just burned a huge amount of energy on that strike, and now you're more hungry than before, which is the opposite of what was supposed to happen. You return to the log, you bask for another hour, and you try again with a different fish and you miss again. On the 3rd attempt, 6 hours after you were born, you catch a fish. Your jaws clamp down on its body and your teeth sink in, and the fish thrashes and tries to escape, but your teeth are angled backwards, so every time it pulls, it just drives them deeper. Then something activates in your body that you didn't know was there. Your coils. You wrap around the fish and squeeze, and you can feel its bones compressing. And after maybe 20 seconds, it stops moving. This is called constriction, and it's your species' whole strategy. No venom, no claws, just wait for something to come close, and then apply pressure until its heart stops. You eat the fish head first, which takes about 10 minutes because your jaws have to stretch around it and pull it down your throat using these backwards muscles that humans don't have. Once it's down, you can feel it sitting in your stomach, and your body immediately starts digesting it, and you won't need to eat again for 3 days. The sun is now setting, and you return to the root system and sleep. 3 weeks pass and you grow constantly, almost half an inch a day, feeding on fish and small caimans and anything else you can constrict. And you're learning fast because the Amazon does not give second chances, and you've already had dozens of close calls. A jaguar almost saw you while you were basking. An adult anaconda swam directly over you while you were hiding. A black caiman came within 2 meters of your hiding spot, and you held your breath for 40 minutes until it left. You're 3 meters long now, and you weigh maybe 60 kilograms. And you've moved from definitely going to die to probably going to die, which is progress. Congrats. You started hunting capybaras, specifically the young ones that weigh around 15 kilograms, because they come to the water's edge at dusk and they're not very smart. You've killed 4 of them so far, and you're getting better at it, with faster strike, tighter coils, and quicker kills. But there's still that anaconda. It's 6 meters long, and it hunts the same area as you do, and you've seen it kill a full-grown capybara in under a minute. And every time you see it, you hide, because fighting it would be insane. You're learning territory. You've claimed a small oxbow lake that formed when the river changed course. It has good depth for hiding, plenty of fish, and a steady rotation of capybaras that apparently have not figured out that drinking from this specific lake is a very bad idea. You spend most of your time in the water where it's easier to move, surfacing every 30 minutes to breathe, and you've gotten good at staying perfectly still for hours at a time while prey walks right past you. Then one night you spot something new, a capybara, but not a young one, an adult, maybe 50 kilograms, which is risky because that's almost as much as you weigh. But you're hungry and you're feeling confident, which in nature is usually a mistake. You wait until it's drinking with its head down, distracted, and you launch from the water like you're spring-loaded. Your jaws catch it around the neck and your coils wrap around its body, and it screams, which you didn't know capybaras could do. But your coils are locked and tightening with every breath it takes, and after 20 minutes it stops screaming, and after 25 minutes it stops moving, and after 30 minutes its heart stops. You killed it. Then you smell something else in the water. You turn your head around and the anaconda from before is there. It's 6 meters of muscle sliding through the shallows, and it smelled the blood and it's coming to investigate. This is a problem. You're wrapped around your kill, which means you're anchored in place, which means you can't run, and unwrapping would take at least 2 minutes, and the anaconda is less than 30 seconds away. It sees you. You see it. Neither of you move for maybe 90 seconds, which in prey drive time is an eternity, and you're doing threat calculations in your tiny brain, running the numbers on whether you can win this fight or whether it's going to kill you and take your food. But you're bigger now than you were 3 weeks ago. Not bigger than the anaconda, but big enough that fighting you would be risky even if it won. The anaconda circles once, slowly, and then sinks below the surface and leaves. You exhale. Over the next 2 months, you grow to 4 meters, and you've gotten good at this. The Oxbow Lake is yours now because you've killed everything that challenged you for it, and you're eating regularly. You've learned to find warm spots during the day and hunt at night when it's easier to ambush prey. You're still not safe though. There's a black caiman in the main river that's 4 meters long and built like a tank, and you've seen it from a distance and decided that avoiding it is the correct strategy. You're 6 months old now. You weigh maybe 150 kilograms. You're not a prey animal anymore, but you're not really apex yet either. The Amazon is full of things that can still kill you if you make one mistake. The water is warm tonight. There's something moving at the edge of the lake, and you sink below the surface and wait. And that thing at the edge of the lake is a peccary, which is a type of pig that weighs about 30 kilograms and has no idea what's about to happen to it. You're 7 meters long now, and hunting has become almost boring, and in the way that things get boring when you're good at them and nothing poses a real challenge anymore, because over the last 6 months you've grown fast enough that most of the animals you used to hide from now avoid you. The capybaras that come to drink here have learned to check the water first, looking for your outline in the murky shallows, and half the time they see you and leave without drinking, which means that they would rather risk dehydration than risk you. And honestly, that's a reasonable call for them. But the peccary doesn't check. It walks straight to the water and starts drinking, and you strike from 2 meters away and grab it around the ribs, and your coils wrap tight before it can even process what's happening. The whole thing takes maybe 4 minutes from strike to death, and you've gotten so efficient at this that you're already thinking about your next meal while you're swallowing this one. You weigh about 200 kilograms now. That's heavier than most jaguars, which is important because jaguars are the only land predator in the Amazon that regularly kills big snakes. And up until recently, you would have been in their target weight range, but now you're crossing into the zone where attacking you stops being worth the risk. This gets tested one morning when you're basking on a sandbar, stretched out in direct sun because the night was cooler than usual and your body temperature dropped to 24 degrees, which made you sluggish and dumb again. So you've been lying here for 2 hours absorbing heat and trying to get your brain working again. You hear something moving through the brush on the bank and you lift your head and there's a jaguar. It's a male, probably 90 kilograms, and it's walking down to the river to drink. It sees you and you see it. Neither of you move for what feels like 10 minutes, but is probably closer to 90 seconds, and you can see it doing the same math that you're doing, which is running threat assessment calculations on whether this interaction ends in fighting or walking away. Jaguars kill caimans by biting through their skulls, which is their whole strategy, so theoretically, it could kill you if it got a clean bite at your head. But you're 7 meters long and mostly muscle, and one good coil around its torso would crush its ribcage. The jaguar decides water isn't that important right now and turns around and leaves. That was a smart choice. But there's still competition in the water. Specifically, there's a 5-meter green anaconda that's been hunting your oxbow lake for the last 2 months. And you've both been doing this thing where you avoid each other and hunt different areas and pretend the other one doesn't exist, which is a system that works great up until food gets scarce. The dry season is starting, which means the water level is dropping and the lake is shrinking and prey is getting concentrated into a smaller area. And concentrated prey means you and the anaconda are running into each other more often. You're both hunting the same capybara herd one evening, and you both strike at the same time at different targets. You both succeed, which means you're both stuck in the shallows constricting your kills while being 10 meters away from each other. The anaconda finishes first because it grabbed a smaller capybara, and instead of leaving, it swims towards you. And this is a territorial challenge, which means you either fight or you abandon your kill and leave. Leaving would be the smart move. Fighting a 5-meter anaconda is dangerous even if you're bigger, because snake fights are just two animals trying to constrict each other until one of them suffocates, and there is no guarantee that you would win. But you don't leave. The anaconda moves closer, and you release the dead capybara and turn to face it. And what happens next is slow and weird and nothing like how mammals fight, because there's no biting or slashing. It's just two snakes wrapped around each other and squeezing. You're longer and heavier, but the anaconda is aggressive and gets a coil around your midsection, and you can feel the pressure building as it tightens, so you wrap around its body and start squeezing back. This takes 40 minutes. Whoever tires first loses, and losing means suffocating, so you don't get tired. You keep constricting, and the anaconda keeps constricting, and eventually you feel its grip start to weaken because you outweigh it by 100 kilograms and you have more muscle. And after another 10 minutes, it stops moving entirely. You unwrap yourself from its body and spend the next 6 hours eating it head first, because in nature, there's no such thing as loyalty to your own species, and food is food. The lake is yours now, fully yours, no competition, and for the next 3 weeks, you don't see another large predator in your territory. But then the water starts disappearing. Dry season in the Amazon doesn't mean it stops raining. It just means it rains less. And when it rains less, the water levels drop. And when water levels drop, your oxbow lake starts turning into a big mud pit. You watch it shrink day by day. And this is a real problem because you're 10 meters long now and you weigh close to 600 kilograms. And getting stuck in a drying lake means dying slowly in the sun while vultures wait for you to stop moving. The rule in nature is simple. Migrate before the resources collapse or die with it. You leave the lake and start moving overland towards the main river, which is about 800 meters away through the dense forest. And this is the most exposed you've been since you were born. On land, you're slower and easier to spot, and there's no water to hide in. Your dark scales are absorbing direct sunlight, which is pushing your body temperature up past 35 degrees, which is too hot, which means that you're getting sluggish again for the opposite reason that you've been sluggish before. You make it to the river in 4 hours, moving in short bursts and resting in shade. And when you slide into the water, it's deeper and cooler and full of fish. You sink to the bottom and don't move for an hour while your body temperature stabilizes. This is your new territory. Bigger river, more prey, better resources, but also more competition. There's a black caiman here that you've seen from a distance before, back when you were smaller and avoiding it was the obvious move. But you're not smaller anymore. It's about 4 meters long and weighs maybe 350 kilograms, which makes it the current apex predator of this section of river, and it has no idea that you've just moved in. You watch it for 3 days, learning when it hunts and where it rests and what its patterns are, because ambush predators succeed by knowing more about their target than their target knows about them. On the 4th day, it's hunting fish in shallow water near the bank, head down, distracted, and you're 10 meters behind it, submerged in deep water. You strike from behind and grab it just behind the head before it can turn around, and your coils wrap around its body and it starts thrashing immediately, twisting and rolling and trying to bite you. Its jaws snap shut about 15 centimeters from your head with enough force to break bone. This is not easy. This is not boring. This is genuinely dangerous, and if it gets one clean bite on your skull, this fight ends with you dead. But you're bigger, and you've already locked in, and every time it thrashes, it's burning energy. And after 20 minutes of constant struggling, you feel it start to slow down. And after 30 minutes, it stops fighting. And after 35 minutes, its heart stops. You drag it into deeper water and spend the rest of the day swallowing it, head first, with jaws stretching around its armored body. And by the time that you're done, you're so bloated you look like you just swallowed a canoe. You won't need to eat again for 2 months. You sink to the bottom of the river and rest, and while you're resting, you're growing, because that's what eating a 350 kilogram caiman does when you're a snake. It fuels your next growth phase. You're 11 meters long now. You weigh close to 700 kilograms. The jaguars that come to the river to hunt don't approach the areas where you rest, and the other caimans avoid the deep pools that you've claimed. And the fish population in this section of river has organized itself around avoiding you. When you surface to breathe, nothing challenges you. When you hunt, nothing interferes. The river has been recalibrated around you, and every animal in this ecosystem has updated its risk assessment to include you as the main threat. You've become what 60 million years of extinction said that you couldn't be. The water is yours, the prey is yours, and anything stupid enough to test that is going to end up as a meal you digest for 8 weeks while you grow another meter long. The only question left is what happens when you get even bigger. Because getting bigger stops being exciting after a certain point and starts becoming a serious problem. You're 12.5 meters long now. You weigh 1,100 kilograms, and your body mass is so large that you spend half your time figuring out how to not overheat, because cold-blooded animals your size retain heat for hours after the sun goes down, which means you can't just bask whenever you want anymore without risking cooking yourself from the inside. The black caimans that used to compete with you for hunting space now hunt in completely different sections of the river, and the anacondas that used to live here have relocated to smaller areas where they don't have to worry about you deciding if they look like food. Nothing in this river challenges you anymore, not because you've fought everything, but because everything has done the math and decided fighting you is a bad investment. There's a lowland tapir that drinks at your lake every 3 days, always at dusk, always at the same spot on the north bank where there's a gap in the vegetation that lets it see the forest behind it while it drinks. Tapirs weigh about 220 kilograms, and they're built for pushing through dense jungle, which makes them strong and hard to kill. And up until now, you've avoided them because the risk to reward ratio wasn't worth it. But you're bigger now, and risk to reward ratios change when you outweigh your prey by 900 kilograms. You've been watching this tapir for 2 weeks, learning its schedule, memorizing where it steps and how long it stays. Because ambush hunting at this scale isn't about speed anymore. It's about knowing more about your target than your target knows about itself. The tapir drinks for roughly 4 minutes each visit, and it positions itself about 2 meters from the water's edge. And it always faces slightly south so it can watch the trail it came from. This is workable. On day 16, you position yourself in the shallows at dusk, buried in mud with only your nostrils above the surface, and you've been motionless for 8 hours when the tapir doesn't show up. So you wait another 3 hours and it still doesn't show up. Eventually you leave and return to your normal hunting spot and eat a 40 kilogram capybara, which at this point feels like eating a snack that barely justifies the effort of swallowing it. On day 17 of waiting, you try again. The same position, the same weight, and the tapir shows up, but it stops 5 meters from the water and stands there for 10 minutes looking around like it heard something, and then it leaves without drinking. On day 18, you've been waiting for 11 hours when the tapir finally approaches, and this time it walks straight to the water and starts drinking, head down, and it's 2 meters from the edge, which is close enough. You explode out of the shallows and cover 3 meters in less than a second, and your jaws clamp around the tapir's neck. It makes this sound that you didn't know tapirs could make. It tries to run back into the forest, dragging you with it, but your back half is still in the water, and you're using the weight of the lake as leverage. So you pull it sideways into the shallows, and your coils start wrapping around its torso. But then one of its hooves hit you in the side, and you feel a rib crack. But that's fine. Ribs can heal. Beer tries to inhale and can't. You tighten them more, and every time it exhales, even slightly, you take up the slack and compress tighter. And you're not trying to suffocate it. You're trying to stop its heart by cutting off blood flow, which is faster and more efficient. After 6 minutes, it stops kicking. After 8 minutes, its heart stops. And after 10 minutes, you're certain it's dead. And you start the process of unwrapping yourself, which takes another 5 minutes because your coils are locked that tight. Then you drag it fully into the water and spend about 30 seconds looking at it. Because swallowing something this size is going to take most of the night, and you need to commit to the decision before you start. Because once you start, you can't stop halfway. So you begin with the head, because that's how snakes eat, and your jaws stretch wider than they ever stretched before. Your lower jaw literally disconnects from your upper jaw at the hinge points so your mouth can expand around the tapir's skull. This takes an hour, just the head. 1 hour of slow muscular contractions pulling the tapir's head deeper into your throat. And you're not chewing because you're a snake, you don't have teeth for chewing. You're just pulling it down with rhythmic throat muscles and waiting for your stomach acid to do the actual work of digestion over the next several weeks. The body takes another 5 hours. By the time that you've swallowed the last leg, the sun is coming up and you're so bloated you look physically deformed. And your body is stretched so wide that your scales are separated and showing the skin underneath. And you weigh over 1,300 kilograms now because you just added 220 kilograms of tapir into your digestive tract. So you sink to the bottom of the river and barely move for the next 4 weeks because that's how long it takes to digest something this size. And during those 4 weeks, you're completely vulnerable and can't hunt and can barely swim, which is the trade-off for being able to eat enough food in one meal to sustain you for 3 months. But nothing comes to challenge you while you're digesting, because nothing in this river is stupid enough to try. And after 6 weeks, the tapir is fully digested and you've grown another ½ meter in length. You're 13 meters now. You weigh 1,150 kilograms, which is more than twice the weight of the largest black caiman in the Amazon. And you are functionally the largest predator in this river system. The water is too cold for you technically though. It's 27 degrees Celsius when you need it to be 32, which means you're operating at the edge of your temperature tolerance, and on cooler nights, you feel yourself getting slower and having trouble thinking clearly. But you've adapted. You bask longer during the day and you hunt in the warmest parts of the river, and you've learned to time your activity around temperature instead of just hunger. Climate change might eventually make the Amazon hot enough that more animals your size could exist here, or it might make it too unstable for you to survive. But that's a problem for future you, and future you is going to be even bigger and harder to kill. So future you will figure it out. Right now, today, you are the apex predator of this section of the Amazon River. And every animal within 5 kilometers of your territory has reorganized its behavior around avoiding you. When you surface to breathe, fish scatter. When you move through the shallows, caimans leave. When you hunt, nothing interferes. The forest is loud with birds and insects. The water is dark and warm. And somewhere downstream, there's a group of capybaras drinking at the bank, completely unaware that in about 20 minutes, you're going to ruin their day. You've been extinct for 60 million years, and the modern Amazon wasn't built to support something your size. But you're here anyway. And so far, the ecosystem is bent around you instead of breaking you. The water is yours, the prey is yours, and if you're lucky and the temperature holds and nothing catastrophic happens, you might live another 30 years getting bigger and slower and more impossible to kill. So you sink below the surface and start moving towards the capybaras. Nature said you couldn't exist here, but you're about to prove nature wrong. There are 4 other stegosaurs in your herd when you hatch, and by the end of month 1 of you being alive, it will be just you. On the bright side, you're now the largest land animal alive. Unfortunately, you're also the loneliest. Here is how how that happened, and what you will find out on the other side. If you are ready to be emotionally destroyed by a dinosaur video, hit the like button and subscribe, because we do that kind of thing a lot here. In the year 2026 on the planet Earth, you are a Stegosaurus, and you don't remember being born. What you remember is pushing. You remember something hard above you, something wet around you, and every part of your body screaming the same thing. Out, get out, push until the walls break. So you push with legs you've never used, and there's a crack above your head and the light floods in. And suddenly you're breathing air that doesn't taste like shell. You're wet and shaking and your eyes won't focus. Everything is too bright, too loud, way too big. But there's a shadow above you that blocks out the sun, and somehow that shadow is the safest thing in the world. That is your mother. She's massive. You don't understand how massive yet. That comes later. But right now, she's just warm and solid and here. Her head comes down to check on you. It's this huge skull with a beak that could break you in half, and instead, it just nudges you and sniffs you and makes sure you're real. And then she makes a sound, a low and rumbling sound somewhere in her chest, and every scared thing inside you goes quiet. That sound means you're safe. It means you're loved. That sound means that nothing bad can happen. You'll spend the rest of your life trying to remember exactly what that sounded like, but you won't be able to. Right now, you feel it in your bones and you stop shaking. You're not alone in the nest. There are others. Your father standing guard at the edge of the clearing with his tail raised and his head turning slow, scanning the trees for something you can't see. Your older sister, who hatched a few days before you, is already trying to stand on legs that don't quite work yet, and she keeps falling over and getting back up. The four of them are all you have, and they're also all that you need. For the first few weeks, you don't do much except exist. You sleep against your mother's side because her body holds heat and the night gets cold. You try to walk and mostly fail. Your sister thinks this is hilarious and keeps nudging you over whenever you almost get your balance, which doesn't help. You don't understand yet that she's playing. You just know you keep ending up on your side with your legs in the air while she makes sounds that might be a dinosaur laughing. Your father doesn't play. He walks the edges of your territory in slow circles, sniffing the air and stopping sometimes to stare at nothing you can see. His tail is always half raised, the spikes catching the light, and when he makes this low rumble, everyone relaxes. When he's silent, everyone freezes. You figure this out fast. You figure out a lot of things fast because that's what staying alive requires, even when you don't know you're doing it. And then there's your mother. She teaches you everything else. Which plants are safe and which ones will make your gut cramp for days. She lets you eat the wrong thing once and watches you suffer, and you never make that mistake again. Where the ground is solid and where it will swallow you to your knees if you step wrong. How to read the pressure in your skull before a storm hits. She positions herself between you and anything unfamiliar in the modern day Louisiana. And you don't think about it because it's just what she does. It's what she's always done, and it's what she will always do. Why? Because you are her child, and in an animalistic way, she loves you. Your sister teaches you how to swing your tail. She does it slow at first and shows you the motion, the way the weight shifts through your hips and builds momentum until the spikes at the end are moving fast enough to crack wood. You practice on dead logs until the motion becomes automatic, until your body does it without your brain getting involved. She doesn't tell you what it's for. She doesn't have to. Some part of you knows that this is the thing that keeps you alive when everything else fails. These are the good weeks. You're learning, you're growing, you're loved in the simple way that animals can love, which is to say that nobody has to say it because it shows up in everything they do. The way your mother checks on you at night, the way your sister waits for you when you fall behind, the way your father stands between the herd and the tree line like nothing can get past him. You don't know you're memorizing them. You don't know that months from now, you'll stand in a clearing by yourself and try to remember exactly how your mother smelled, how your sister's plates caught that morning light, the specific sound your father made when the perimeter was clear and everyone could breathe. You don't know any of that yet. In this little fleeting moment, in this lost world, you're just happy. But something is wrong. You're too young to name it, but you can feel it. Your mother scans the tree line more than she used to. She wakes up in the middle of the night and stands there, not moving, just listening to something that you can't hear. Your father's patrols get longer. He comes back tired in ways you didn't used to. Once you hear your parents making sounds you've never heard before. Slow and worried and definitely not meant for you. You don't know what they're saying. You just know it makes your stomach tight. And then, one evening, just before dark, you hear something strange. It comes from far away, so far that you can barely make it out. It's a low sound, rumbling, almost like your mother's call, but not quite. It's different, and your mother's head snaps up. Your father stops mid-patrol. The whole herd goes still, is listening, and then it fades. Whatever it was, it's gone. Your mother's plates flush for a moment, and she pushes you closer to the center of the clearing. Your father makes a sound that you've never heard before, something between a question and a warning, but nothing else happens. The night passes, and by morning, everyone acts like it didn't happen. But you notice your mother keeps looking towards where the sound came from. You notice your father's routes have changed, like he's avoiding something. You notice nobody lets you wander as far as you used to. Then the lights come. They come at night. They come all at once. They're these white beams cutting through the trees, turning the dark into something bright and wrong. For a second, nobody moves. Your whole herd just stands there staring at the lights like they can't process what they're seeing. Then the sound starts. It's not thunder. It's not anything from the sky. It's quick cracks that split the air, one after another. And suddenly your father is running. He's charging straight at the lights because that's what he does. That's what he's always done. You watch him disappear into the brightness and the noise. He doesn't come back. Your mother screams. You've never heard that sound from her before. It's not a call. It's not a warning. It's something broken and desperate, and it freezes you to the ground. But then she's pushing you, shoving you towards the water with her head, and your legs are too young and too slow, and you just keep stumbling. And behind you, your sister tries to run. A crack, and her legs buckle. She hits the ground sideways hard, her plate scraping against dirt, and her tail, the tail she taught you to swing with, goes still. You're screaming now. You don't know what kind of sound you're making, but it's coming out of you and you can't stop it. Your mother is still pushing. The water is close, you can smell it. She takes a hit and staggers, but she keeps going. Another hit. Her front leg gives out and she drops to her knees, but her head is still behind you, still shoving you forward, still trying to get you to the water. A third hit lands, and she stops. You're in the water. You don't remember getting there. Your body did it without you. Now you're standing chest deep in dark water with your nostrils barely above the surface, trying not to breathe too loud. The lights are sweeping the clearing back and forth, looking for something, looking for you. You don't move. You don't breathe. You stand there in the water while they walk through your home, while they shine their lights on the bodies, your father, your sister, your mother, while they make sounds to each other in a language that you'll never understand. Then they leave, the lights pull back, and the mechanical sounds fade into the distance. And slowly, one piece at a time, the silence comes back. You wait until the silence is complete, then you wait longer because you don't trust it. When you finally crawl out of the water, the world is different. Your father is a shape at the tree line. You don't go to him. You can see from here that he's not getting up. Your sister is closer. She's lying on her side, her plates catching the moonlight. Her eyes are open and seeing nothing. You walk to her and stand there for a long time, waiting for her to move, waiting for her to knock you over with her snout like she always does. But she doesn't move, and she's not going to. Your mother is where she fell. Her head is still pointed towards the water, toward where she pushed you. The last thing she did on this earth was shove you towards the only place that could hide you. You walk to her. You press your snout against her neck the way you used to do every morning when she woke you up. Her skin is still warm, but she doesn't make that sound. You call to her. It's the small sound that juveniles make when they're scared and they need their mother to come. It's the first sound that you ever learned, and no one answers. You stay with her until sunrise. You watch the warmth leave her body. You don't understand what happened. You don't understand anything except that the things with the lights came into your home, and now everyone is gone. The small bipeds, the ones that walked on two legs and carried the lights and made the cracking sounds, they did this. You don't know what they are or what they wanted. You just know they came into your home and took everything. Your father, who taught you what silence meant. Your sister, who taught you how to fight. Your mother, who taught you everything else and died trying to save you. They're not getting up. None of them are getting up. So you walk. You don't know where you're going. You just know that you can't stay here. The smell of blood is everywhere and you can't make yourself look at them anymore. You walk until your legs shake, and you walk into the swamp becomes something you don't recognize. And then you keep walking because stopping means thinking, and you're not ready to think about what you left on the ground back there. The The first few days are nothing but movement. Your legs carry you forward because that's what legs do. Your brain doesn't have to be involved. Left foot, right foot, through water that comes up to your belly, over ground that sucks at your feet and doesn't want to let go. You don't sleep the second night either. By the third night, your body just stops whether you want it to or not. You wake up somewhere unfamiliar with no memory of lying down. This becomes the pattern. Walk until you drop, wake up confused, and then do it again. You're not heading anywhere specific because there's nowhere to head. You're just putting distance between yourself and the clearing where they're still lying on the ground, getting colder, getting stiff, turning into something that isn't them anymore. And every mile you cover feels wrong, like your body is betraying them by continuing to work, by continuing to grow, because nobody warns you about this part. You're getting bigger every day, a little heavier and a little taller. Your plates are filling in, your tail has real weight behind it now. All of this is happening without your family here to see it, and that feels like a cruelty so specific you don't have a name for it. You're becoming the thing they were raising you to be, and none of them are around to watch. So you walk and you eat, or you try to. Nobody taught you about the plants out here. Your mother started, but she didn't finish. And now you're running experiments with your own stomach as the test subject. Some of the green stuff cramps you so hard that you can't move for hours. Other things go down fine and come right back up. You eat something with bright leaves near a slow-moving channel, and you lose 2 full days to shaking and sweating, curled up in a tangle of roots with your eyes shut, waiting for the pain to pass. Every lesson feels bitter because you're learning things your mother should have shown you, except she's dead in a clearing somewhere behind you because some things with lights decided that she shouldn't be alive. The pain eventually passes, and you don't die, and you're not sure how you feel about that. What you learn is this. The soft stuff near the water is usually safe. Young shoots, floating plants with wide leaves, things that don't fight back when you bite them. You start recognizing patterns, which ground holds weight, which water is clean, which sounds mean danger, and which ones are just the swamp being the swamp. All of this is coming through pain and repetition, because there's no one left to guide you through it. One morning, about 3 weeks after the lights, something tries to kill you. You're drinking from a slow channel when the water next to you explodes. There's a shape, long, low, armored, all teeth, and it's coming fast. It grabs your front leg just above the ankle and clamps down hard, trying to drag you into the deeper water. This is the alligator. You don't know the word, but you know what it is. A predator, a thing that wants to eat you. And honestly, compared to what your species is used to, it's kind of pathetic. Back home, the predators were the size of buildings. They had jaws that could snap you in half and legs that covered ground faster than you could run. This thing is maybe 3 times your length and doesn't weigh anywhere close to what you weigh. It's trying to death roll you into the water like you're some kind of helpless prey. It doesn't seem to realize that you're not helpless at all. Your body knows what to do before your brain catches up. You remember your sister. You remember the motion she drilled into you over and over until it lived and breathed in your muscles. Your hips rotate, your weight shifts, and your tail comes around fast, faster than anything that size has any right to move. And the impact shudders through your whole body. The alligator lets go. It actually releases your leg and rolls sideways in the water, twitching. There's blood spreading through the murk, and none of it is yours. One of your spikes went through its side. It maybe cracked some ribs. The thing is still alive, but it's not fighting anymore. It's trying to drag itself towards deeper water with desperate little jerks of its tail. You watch it go. You wait for something to happen inside you, some rush of victory, some flood of relief, some sense that you just won something that mattered. But there's nothing, just the fading splash of a gator crawling away and the slow drip of swamp water off your leg. That was the first thing you've almost killed in this world. And it felt like absolutely nothing. Here's what hits you while you're standing there in the bloody water. Nothing in this swamp can hurt you. Not really. You're bigger than everything else that lives here. You're armored in ways these animals can't crack, and your tail, your sister's last gift, can break bones with one swing. You're an apex predator now, the top of the food chain, king of the entire swamp, and none of it matters. Because you didn't want to be a king. You wanted to be part of something. You wanted a herd. You wanted a family. Seasons start to blur together after that. The air gets thick and hot and then cooler and thick again. Storms roll through every few weeks. You learn to read the pressure behind your eyes. That means something big is building, and you find high ground when you feel it coming. Not because you're smart about it, but because drowning would be easy and some stubborn part of you refuses to let that happen. That's the thing you can't explain to yourself. Your brain wants to quit. Some part of you keeps imagining what it would be like to lie down in the deep mud and just let the swamp have you, but your body won't cooperate. Your legs keep walking and your lungs keep breathing and your stomach keeps demanding food. You start to hate your body a little bit for that. It's keeping you alive, and it didn't bother to check if you wanted to be. The bugs are worse than any predators. There's clouds of them biting every soft part you have. Your belly, the gaps between your plates, the corners of your eyes. They drink your blood in amounts that you can actually feel. Some nights you stand in the water up to your neck just to get an hour of peace. Some mornings you wake up with swollen patches all over your skin that itch so bad you rub against trees until you bleed. You learn to coat yourself in mud, thick layers of it packed into every gap and crevice. It dries and cracks and makes you look like something that crawled out of the grave, but it keeps the bugs out for a few hours, and a few hours is enough. This is your life now. Wake up in crusted mud, walk more, stand in water until the heat passes, coat yourself in fresh mud, try to sleep, fail, repeat. And you're growing the whole time. Your body becoming exactly what it was designed to become, except there's nobody to share it with. Every pound of new muscle feels like a bad joke. Every inch taller feels like a taunt. You're becoming powerful, and the power is useless, and nobody's around to see any of it. You drink bad water somewhere around month 2. Maybe month 3. You've stopped keeping track. The channel looks clean, but it isn't, and within hours your gut is doing things guts should never do. You can't eat for 3 days. You lie in a clearing, too weak to stand, watching the sky change colors and wondering if this is finally it. It isn't. Your body fights through it. Of course it does. Your body has apparently decided that you're surviving whether you like it or not, and you're starting to resent that decision pretty heavily. A mud pit nearly finishes what the bad water couldn't. 2 weeks later, you step wrong and suddenly you're sinking, and shoulder deep in black muck that grabs and pulls and refuses to let go. For about an hour, you thrash and struggle and make sounds that you didn't know were in you. And for one small moment, one tiny window, you consider stopping. You consider just letting the mud win. Your legs won't stop kicking though. They refuse, and eventually, somehow, you drag yourself onto solid ground. You lie there for the rest of the day, shaking, covered in muck that smells like something rotting. You don't move until the sun goes down. Then you get up, because apparently that's what you do now. You just keep getting up. It must be some cruel cosmic joke the universe is playing on you. You're all alone, your family taken from you, and your body just won't let you join them. A few days pass, and then the hurricane comes, and it's the worst of it. You feel it coming a full day before it arrives. It's that pressure behind your eyes that means something massive is building. The sky turns green, the birds go quiet, every small creature in the swamp disappears into wherever they go, and then it's just you, wedging yourself between 2 fallen cypress trees, trying to make your body small enough that the wind won't catch your plates and flip you over. And for the next 16 hours, the world tears itself apart around you. Water rises, trees crack and fall. The wind howls so loud it wipes out every thought you've ever had. And you stay locked in place, not fighting for survival anymore, just enduring, just being a body in a storm, waiting for it to either finish you or pass. It passes. When it's over, you crawl out. The swamp is wrecked. Trees are down everywhere. There's water where land used to be. The whole sections of forest are just gone. You're alive. And you're not hurt, and you don't feel anything about it. You don't feel like you survived anything. You just feel like you're still here, and that's all. That used to feel different. It doesn't anymore. You are huge now. You're a young adult and weigh somewhere around 4 tons. Your plates catch sunlight in ways that would have made your mother proud. Your tail could kill anything in the swamp, and most of them wouldn't even see it coming. You've eaten foods your ancestors never tasted, survived weather your kind never faced, adapted to a world that wasn't built with you in mind. Nothing here can hurt you. You've proven that over and over. And somewhere in all of that surviving, you realize you can't remember what your mother's call sounded like. You try one evening, standing in the shallows when the sun drops. You reach for it, that low rumble she made when everything was safe. The specific sound that meant that you can sleep now. I'm watching. It was the first thing that you ever understood. It was the sound that meant home. It's not there anymore though. You get static, you get silence, you get this vague shape of a sound, but not the sound itself. You reach for the memory, and there's nothing there to grab. And that's when it hits you. You can survive anything. You've already proven that, but survival costs something. The price is this. The memories are leaving, the sounds are fading. And the longer you stay alive out here, the more you forget. One day you'll forget her face, the way her plates caught the early light, the specific pressure of her snout against your neck when she woke you up. All of it will go soft, and then blurry, and then gone. When that happens, you won't even have the memories anymore. You'll just be an animal in a swamp, a body that moves because bodies move, and the family that raised you won't exist anywhere except as bones in a clearing that you're never going back to. And that night, something inside you breaks. You stop walking, not because you found somewhere to be, but because you can't make yourself take another step. Your legs work fine, your body has plenty of energy, you just don't have a reason. So you stand there in one spot for 2 days. You don't eat, you barely drink, you just exist staring at nothing, feeling the hole where your herd used to be. A few animals wander past, a family of those big rodents with the orange teeth, some birds watching for the branches, and none of them know what you are, and none of them care. Maybe this is how it ends. Not with the lights and violence, but with stillness, with giving up, with choosing to stop moving and letting the swamp take whatever's left. And then, on the third morning, you hear something. It comes from miles and miles away. A low, rumbling noise, a frequency that cuts through every other sound in the swamp because your body knows it before your brain does. You haven't moved in 2 days, and now you're still for a different reason. You're afraid to breathe, afraid that any sound you make will drown it out or prove it was never real. The swamp goes quiet around you, the birds stop calling, and even the bugs seem to pause. And it comes again, distant but clear, a sound that nothing else in this world makes, a sound that you've been trying to forget for months because remembering hurt too much. But here it is, real and far away, and calling to something, calling to you, and it sounds like family. For a long moment after the sound fades, you don't trust it. You've played this trick on yourself before, in the bad nights and the gray hours just before sleep takes you. Your brain has made sounds that weren't there, calls from things that don't exist. So you stand frozen in the swamp, barely breathing, waiting to find out if you finally lost your mind or if something real just happened. It comes again. The same direction, the same frequency. This is real. And suddenly your legs are moving. You don't decide to walk, your body just goes, pulling towards the sound like something invisible hooked into your chest. 3 days ago, you couldn't make yourself take a single step. Now you can't make yourself stop. Some buried part of you, something you thought the loneliness had killed, has grabbed hold and won't let go. And that thing is hope. The call comes from the northwest, miles away, maybe more. Sound does strange things in the swamp. You can't judge the distance. But every hour or so it comes again. And every time it does, you adjust your heading and keep moving. You don't sleep that first night. You barely stop to eat. You just walk, pushing through vegetation that gets thicker the farther you go. The swamp changes as you travel. The plants look different here. Shorter trees, wider channels, ground that holds your weight in places it shouldn't and gives way where it should be solid. You're moving through territory you've never seen, chasing something you can't even be sure is real. And some small part of your brain is screaming that this is a mistake, that you're going to walk until the sound stops coming and then you'll be alone again. Except this time you'll be alone somewhere you don't know. Somewhere you can't find your way back from. You keep walking anyways though, because the alternative is standing in one place until you disappear. On the second day, you have to cross deep water. The channel stretches wider than anything you've dealt with, maybe 30 meters across. The far bank is just a dark smudge through the morning fog. You wade in up to your knees and the bottom drops away. It's too deep to walk. You can't see down there and you don't know what's waiting. But the call came from the other side, and the only way forward is through. So you step off the edge. The water rises fast, up your belly, over your chest, closing around your neck. Your feet lose the bottom, and suddenly you're floating, which is not something your body was built to do. Your plates catch the water and try to drag you sideways. Your legs paddle at nothing. For 5 or 6 terrifying minutes, you're not walking. You're just thrashing towards the far bank, with your snout barely above the surface, hoping you make it before your strength gives out. You make it, but just barely. You drag yourself onto solid ground and stand there heaving, water streaming off your plates, your legs trembling from the effort. You just did something that could have drowned you, for a sound, for something you're still not sure even exists. And then the call comes again. Closer now, and every doubt goes quiet. You shake yourself off and start walking. Day 3 is when the fear hits. You're picking your way through a dense stretch of cypress, head down, focused on the ground when you catch it. Faint at first, and then stronger. Oil and sweat and something mechanical underneath. Your plates flush hot before your brain catches up. Your whole body locks. You know that smell. You know exactly what it means. Somewhere ahead through the trees, you hear voices, human voices, the same kind of sounds that came with the lights, the same sounds that filled the air while your family was dying on the ground. You don't move. You don't breathe. You press yourself against a thick cypress trunk and try to become part of the bark. You try to make yourself so still that whatever's out there won't notice you exist. Your heart slams against your ribs so hard you're sure that they can hear it. The voices get closer. You hear laughter, a sound that should be harmless but makes your whole body clench. You hear footsteps splashing through shallow water, getting nearer. And then you hear an engine start up. That mechanical whine from the night everything ended. And every instinct you have screams the same thing. Run, run now, run before they see you. But running means making noise, and making noise means being seen. And being seen means you don't finish the thought, you just stay frozen. For what feels like hours, you stand pressed against that tree, watching shapes move between the trunks, waiting for them to look your way, waiting for the lights to come back and the cracks to split the air, waiting to end up on the ground like your mother, like your sister, like your father, who charged into the brightness and never came back. But they don't see you. Eventually, the voices fade. The engine pulls away, getting quieter and quieter until it's gone. And still, you don't move. Not for another hour, not until the silence feels real and the smell is blown away, and you're sure as you can be that they're not coming back. When you finally step out from behind that tree, your legs are shaking. Not from exhaustion, but from something older, from the kind of fear that never really goes away. And standing there, you finally understand. You're gonna carry that fear forever. It's never leaving. Those things, those small, loud, two-legged things with their lights and their machines, carved something into you that night that they killed your family. A wound that healed on the surface, but never stopped hurting. You're going to flinch at that smell for the rest of your life. You're going to freeze at engine sounds. You're going to see shapes in the dark and wonder if they're coming for you again. That's the cost. That's what surviving looks like. But you keep walking anyway because the calls are still coming, and whatever is making them matters more than the fear. 2 more days pass. You're deep in territory that feels foreign now. Different birds calling overhead, different plants underfoot, a different quality to the light filtering through the canopy. The calls have been getting closer, and then suddenly they stop. For 6 hours, you're convinced you made the whole thing up, that you're going to die out here alone, lost in a place nothing will ever find. And then you hear it again. Close, so close it vibrates in your chest. You start to run through the mist, just past a curtain of hanging moss. You see them, 2 shapes, large, plated, and moving the way you move. You stop at the tree line. Your heart is hammering so hard you can feel it in your skull. You've wanted this so badly for so long that you can't make yourself believe it's real. What if you're wrong? What if you get closer and they're just something else? Something that just looks like you from a distance? What if this is your brain finally cracking, showing you what you need to see because the loneliness has broken something that can't be fixed? You don't approach. You just stand there and watch. For hours, you stay at the edge of that clearing while they graze. There's a juvenile with them, not as young as you were, but young. It moves with that same restless energy your sister used to have, that same way of testing every boundary. Watching it feels like pressing on a wound that never healed right. Then one of the adults raises its head. It sees you, and neither of you moves. The moment stretches out. It's tense and fragile. You're ready for anything, ready for it to charge and drive you off, ready for it to run and leave you standing there with nothing, ready for this to fall apart, because that's what happens. That's what always happens. It calls. The sound goes through you. Not just your ears, but your whole body, every bone and every cell. It's the frequency you've been trying to remember for months, the one that you lost. And here it is, coming from something real, something alive. Something that sees you and isn't running away. You answer before you can think about it. Your own voice, rusty and small, a sound you haven't made since you were pressing your snout against your mother's neck, begging her to wake up. It comes out cracked and rough, but you don't care. You're making it. You're answering. You're not alone. The Stegosaurus in the clearing takes a step towards you. You take a step towards it. The mist is thick. The sun hasn't burned it off yet. You can't see clearly, and you don't know what happens next. Maybe they accept you. Maybe they don't. Maybe this is the start of something, or maybe it's just one moment before everything falls apart again. But right now, you're walking forward. You're moving towards something instead of running from something. For the first time since the night with the lights, you're going somewhere because you want to be there. It's not your mother. It's not your sister, it's not your father, it's not the life that you were supposed to have. That is long gone, and it's never coming back. And some part of you is always going to ache where they used to be. But maybe this is something else. Maybe this is what happens after you stop running. Maybe surviving isn't just about dying. Maybe it's about finding a reason to keep going. The other Stegosaurus is closer now. The juvenile has noticed you too, watching with that same restless energy. Everything feels too fragile to trust, like one wrong move and it could all shatter. You take another step, and whatever happens next, you're ready to find out. You break through the shell. You're 30 centimeters long, and everything in this river wants to eat you. But this river has been missing something for 75 million years. A vacancy at the very top that you're gonna fill if you survive the night. If you want to see more prehistoric animals dropped into places they absolutely don't belong, you should hit the like button and subscribe. I'll pick the top dinosaur you've mentioned in the comments for the next video. The first thing you feel is pressure. The shell around you is cracked, and your body knows what to do even though your brain doesn't understand any of this yet. You push, you twist, and then there's light and air and the thick smell of mud, and you're lying in a nest of rotting leaves on a riverbank in northern Australia. You're 30 centimeters long. Your eyes are open, but everything is blurry and too bright. There are others around you. You can hear them moving. You can hear the wet sounds of shells breaking open, and somewhere nearby, something enormous is watching. That's your mother. She's a saltwater crocodile, maybe 3.5 meters long, and she's been guarding this nest for 3 months. That's what crocodiles do. They pile up plants, lay their eggs inside, and then they wait. The rotting leaves make heat, which keeps the eggs warm, and the mother stays close to fight off anything that wants to dig them up. Goannas, birds, other crocodiles, anything looking for a free meal. She's good at her job. For years, she's been the dominant female in this stretch of river. She knows where to nest, where to hunt, and where the threats come from. But here's the thing that makes your situation different from every other hatchling in this river. She doesn't know what you are. You are not a saltwater crocodile. You're something that hasn't existed on this planet in 75 million years. You're a deinosuchus hatchling, a baby terror crocodile from back when dinosaurs still walked around, somehow born into a modern nest. Right now, you look almost exactly like your siblings. The same size, the same general shape, the same instinct to get to the water as fast as your tiny legs can carry you. The differences will show up later, but for now, you're just trying to survive the next few hours. Your first real threat isn't a bird or a goanna, it's another crocodile. 50 meters downstream, where the river bends and the water gets deep, there's a 6-meter male saltwater crocodile. He's been ruling this section of river for 12 years. Every other croc in the area knows to stay out of his way. The females put up with him during mating season and avoid him the rest of the year. The younger males don't come within a kilometer of his territory if they can help it. Your mother nested at the edge of his range, close enough to the deep water that her hatchlings could reach safety, far enough that she thought she could protect them. She was wrong. He comes for the first time when you're 3 days old. You've made it to the shallows with maybe 15 of your siblings. 15 out of the 40 that hatched. The rest are already gone. They were picked off by herons before they hit the water, snatched by a goanna that your mother chased away too late. These are normal losses. Crocodile nests have terrible survival rates. That's just how it works. But this is different. You're floating in the root tangles near the bank, water up to the eyes, learning how to hold still, and then something changes. The water moves in a way it wasn't moving before. It's a slow, heavy pressure coming from downstream, pushing outward like something massive is sliding through. You don't know what it means yet, but you're about to learn. The big male glides into the shallows like he owns them, because he does. He takes 3 of your siblings in the next 10 seconds, just opens his jaws and scoops them up one after another, the way that you might eat chips. Your mother bellows from somewhere behind you. It's this huge angry sound that should mean something. It should stop this, but it doesn't matter. He's already sliding back into the deeper water with 3 fewer mouths competing for his food, his space, and his territory. That's your first lesson, that there's something in this river that eats things like you, and your mother can't stop it. Your first year is about one thing: don't let him find you. You learn the patterns. He patrols the deep water twice a day, once in the early morning and once at dusk. When he moves, the water tells you. There's a specific pressure wave you can feel against your skin, and when you feel it, you freeze. You find cover and you become invisible. The shallows are your whole world now. Ankle-deep water over mud and roots where nothing big can follow without showing itself. You eat insects. You eat small fish when you can catch them. You eat anything that fits in your mouth because your mouth isn't very big yet, and neither are your options. But your siblings, they keep disappearing. Not always to him though, but a heron gets one while you're watching. It just stabs down and it's over. From below, a barramundi takes another before you see it coming. A goanna finds 2 more in the wrong spot at the wrong time. By the wet season's end, you're the only one left. Out of 40 eggs, there's one survivor, you. Here's the thing, you should probably be dead too. The odds were never in your favor. Hatchlings have terrible survival rates even in good conditions, and your conditions weren't good. You had a territorial male hunting you on purpose. You had no real protection. You spent months living in water barely deep enough to cover your back. But you're still here, and something strange is happening. You're not growing like the other crocodiles. The other crocs that hatched the same reason as you, the ones that made it, they're about 1 meter long now. It's a normal growth rate, standard development. They'll stay about this size for a while, slowly adding length and slowly getting big enough that the herons stop being a threat and the fish start being food instead of danger. You're already past that. In fact, you passed it months ago. By the time the wet season ends and the river starts shrinking, you're nearly 1.5 meters. Your skull is wider than it should be. It's not just bigger, but shaped different. It's built heavier, like there's more bone packed in where bone shouldn't be yet. Your teeth are coming in thick and blunt instead of needle sharp. If you could see yourself from the outside, you'd notice that you don't quite look like a saltwater crocodile anymore. You're becoming something else. You're becoming what you were always supposed to be. The growth isn't slowing down. Every week you're clearly bigger. Every week you need more food, more space, more territory. The root tangles that used to hide you completely now barely fit your body. And the crocodile that killed your siblings, he's noticed. He doesn't come for you directly, not yet, but you see him watching from the deeper water sometimes. Just his eyes and nostrils above the surface, tracking you, trying to figure out what you are. You're too big to be easy prey now, too small to be a real threat, and you exist in this middle ground that makes him uncomfortable. And crocodiles don't like things that make them uncomfortable. And then the dry season hits, and everything changes. Northern Australia doesn't have 4 seasons. It has 2, wet and dry. The wet season dumps a whole year's worth of rain in about 5 months, floods everything and turns the landscape into one giant shallow lake. The dry season does the opposite. The rain just stops, rivers shrink to creeks, shrink to mud, and billabongs that were 50 meters across in January are puddles by October. For every animal here, the dry season is a countdown. Water sources that seemed permanent start disappearing. The animals that need water, which is all of them, start packing together around whatever's left. Predators figure this out fast. You want to eat? Find where the water is and wait. Everything comes to you, and the crocodiles know this better than anyone else. Your billabongs start shrinking in May. By June, it's half the size it was. By August, it's a muddy hole about 20 meters across, packed with fish that have nowhere else to go. Every predator in the area knows exactly where to find an easy meal. The big male sets up the deepest part. Of course he does. It's his territory, and this is the last good water for kilometers. The other crocodiles squeeze into whatever space he lets them have, which isn't much. You don't have a choice. You need water too, so you find a spot at the edge in the shallowest mud where you can keep your skin wet and your body hidden and your eyes on the thing that's been hunting you since you were about 3 days old. It's miserable. The water is brown and warm and crowded with dying fish. Birds circle overhead all day, picking off whatever they can catch. The mud stinks, the nights are cold enough that your body slows down, and you spend hours just sitting there, waiting for the sun to come back up so you can move again. But you survive, because that's what you do now. September is the worst. The billabong shrinks to maybe 10 meters across. There's no hiding anymore. Everyone can see everyone, and he's right there, close enough that you can reach him in seconds. He watches you sometimes, and you watch him back. You're almost 2 meters long now. You're still growing and still changing, and the rains don't come until late October. For a few weeks there, you didn't know if you'd make it. The water got so low that you had to dig into the mud at the deepest point and just wait, buried up to your eyes with your heart rate almost stopping, conserving every bit of energy you had. Some of the other crocodiles didn't make it through. You saw their bodies in the mud flat, dried out, cracked, and dead. But you waited. You've been waiting your whole life, really. 1 year of hiding and surviving and growing feels like forever when you're living it. But in the bigger picture, it's nothing. Your ancestors, the real ones, the ancient ones you don't even know you came from, they lived in a world where patience was everything, where the ones who could wait outlasted the ones who couldn't. You wait like something that's been doing this for 75 million years. And then the rain comes. It starts as a rumble in the distance, a smell in the air that you don't have words for, but your body understands anyway. The drops hit the mud and they're warm, almost hot, and then it's not drops anymore. It's a wall of water coming down so hard you can barely see through it. The billabong starts filling, the rivers start rising, everything that was dying starts to wake back up. You dig yourself out of the mud. You're almost 2 meters long now, bigger than you've ever been, bigger than any 1-year-old crocodile in this river system should be. Your skull has that strange heavy shape that doesn't match anything else in the water. He's still out there though, still patrolling like nothing happened, still bigger than you. But something is different now. He passes your section of bank one morning. It's one of his regular patrols. It's that slow, heavy push to the water you've learned to read since you were 3 days old. And for the first time in your life, you don't hide. You don't freeze, you don't look for cover, you don't make yourself small. You stay exactly where you are, half sunk in the shallows, and you watch him go. He notices. You can tell by the way his head turns just a little, those old eyes finding you at the waterline. He's trying to work out what you are. You can almost see him running the numbers, the size, the threat level, whether you're worth the energy. A year ago you were food, easy prey that he could take without thinking twice. But now you're something else, something he doesn't have a box for. He keeps moving, he slides past and continues downstream without stopping. But you saw it, that little pause, the moment where he decided you weren't worth the trouble. Not yet. You're not safe, let's be clear about that. He could still kill you if he really wanted to. You're bigger than you were, but you're not that big yet. The gap between you two is still real, but it's closing. Every day, every week, every meal you're gaining on him. The distance between what you are and what he is gets smaller with every growth ring forming in your bones. He's 12 years old and about as big as he'll ever get. You're 1 year old and you're just getting started. There's a reckoning coming. You can feel it. Somewhere in the next few years, the math is going to flip. You're going to be bigger than him, stronger than him, and when that happens, he's going to have to choose. He can leave, or he can try to stop you while he still has the chance. The crocodile that took your siblings in the shallows when you were small enough to fit in his mouth, the shadow in the deeper water, the reason you spent a year learning how to be invisible, he's running out of time, and you haven't even really begun. 3 years pass and you're now 4 meters long. You didn't mishear me. 4 meters in 3 years. The saltwater crocodiles born the same season as you, the ones that made it, are maybe 2.5 meters if they're lucky. You've left them behind. You've doubled some of them and you're still going. Your skull has that heavy blunt shape that doesn't look like anything else in this river. Your teeth are built for crushing, not just grabbing. When you swim through the deeper water now, other crocodiles move out of the way without even thinking about it. They just go, the same way that they would move for any other bigger predator, which is what you are now, a bigger predator. The crocodile that killed your siblings is still around, still doing his patrols and still acting like he runs the stretch of the river. But the numbers have changed and both of you know it. When you were a hatchling, he was 20 times your size. When you were 2 meters, he was 3 times your size. Well, now the difference is small enough that he can watch it shrink in real time. And you're 5 meters long when it finally happens. 5 years old, 5 meters long, still growing every month, still demanding more food and more space than any crocodile here should need. The root tangos where you used to hide couldn't fit you now even if you wanted them to. The shallows where you spent your first year learning to be invisible, you would get stuck there with your belly dragging in the mud. You've outgrown your hiding places. You've outgrown your fear. The confrontation happens at the river bend where the deep pool sits, the same spot where he grabbed your siblings when you were 3 days old. It's his best hunting ground. The place where buffalo have crossed forever, the deepest water for kilometers, the spot every crocodile in the area knows is his, or knew, because it's past tense now. You're not there by accident. You've been pushing into his space for months, taking more of the river each time, testing where the edges are. He's been backing off, giving ground, hoping maybe you'll settle somewhere else before it comes to a real fight. But you're not settling anywhere else. When he sees you in his pool that morning, he does something that surprises you. He doesn't retreat. He doesn't drift away like he's been doing for the past year. He turns towards you, and for the first time since you were small enough to fit in his mouth, he comes straight at you. This is it. 12 years of being the biggest thing in this water, 12 years of other crocodiles running from him, giving way, treating him like the apex of everything. He's not giving that up without making you take it. He approaches the way dominant males approach. Slow, mouth cracked open just enough to show the teeth, body lifted high to make himself look as big as possible. This is how crocodiles handle these things. They display first and try to make the other one back down. Avoid actual combat if they can. Fights are risky. Even winners come out of them hurt. But you don't back down. You don't display back at him. You just wait. He's 6 meters long. You're 5. He's got experience in weight and over a decade of never losing a single fight. You've got something he doesn't understand yet. Jaws that are built different. A skull that's shaped for power he can't match. Teeth made for breaking things that shouldn't break. He lunges first, and that's his mistake. Crocodiles fight by trying to grab the other one's head or throat. Whoever gets that grip controls everything. They can drag the other one under, they can drown them, or just hold on until they quit. He's done this before. He knows exactly how it works. What he doesn't know is that your bite isn't like his. Your jaws close on the side of his skull, and something cracks. Not your teeth, but his bone. You can feel the structure giving under the pressure. Feel something in there starting to fail. He's thrashing now, trying to get loose, trying to roll away, but you've got him. You've got him and you're not letting go. This is called a death roll. It's what crocodiles do to tear apart prey that's too big to swallow whole. You lock your jaw and spin your entire body, using all of that mass as leverage, and whatever you're holding onto either comes off or it breaks. He rips himself free before you can finish it. Tears away hard enough that the water clouds up with blood, his blood, and then he's swimming faster than you've ever seen any crocodile move. Away from you, away from his territory, away from the pool he's owned for 12 years. You don't chase him. You don't need to. You just sink back into the water and watch him leave. He doesn't come back. Not that day, not that week, not ever. The shadow in the deeper water that haunted your whole first year of life, the reason you learned to read pressure waves like a second language, he's gone. You broke something in him at the riverbend that morning. Broke it physically, sure, part of his skull, but you broke something else too. He came at something stronger than him, and he lost. Crocodiles remember a loss like that. Word spreads the way it always does with them, not through calls, not through any real communication, just through absence, through territory suddenly empty, through the specific kind of quiet that happens when the thing that used to bellow every morning just doesn't anymore. The other saltwater crocodiles in the area put it together fast. The big male is gone. There's something new in the deep pool, something that beat him so bad he ran. They don't test you. They don't come sniffing around to see if maybe they could take you instead. They just stay away. They give you kilometers of space, whole sections of river that used to have a pecking order in a system that everybody understood. You've broken that system. You're not part of the pecking order anymore. You're above it. And now you don't have to spend energy defending yourself. You can focus on something else. Eating. You start taking real prey now. Not the fish and small stuff that kept you alive when you were young. Not the lucky scraps that were all you could manage when you were constantly watching for something bigger. You're a proper apex hunter, and your body is screaming for fuel. The feral pigs come first, millions of them in the top end, rooting around in the mud, wandering to the water to drink and cool off. Your first one takes maybe 2 seconds. A lunge from the shallows, jaws closing on a pig before it can process what's happening. 50 kilograms of meat gone in a blink of an eye. It's easy, almost boring. Then you try something bigger. There's cattle here, feral cows that roam the bush and come to the river when they're thirsty. They're not as dumb as pigs. They know to watch the water's edge, but they don't know about you yet. They're looking for saltwater crocs, for the 4 and 5 meter animals they've learned to spot. You're bigger than that, and you're faster than they're ready for. Your first cow weighs maybe 400 kilos. She comes down at dusk, which is the wrong move. That's when crocodiles are active, when the fading light makes it hard to see beneath the surface. You're already in position, settled into the mud at the bottom, and just your eyes are showing. She gets about ankle deep before you hit her. The method is the same one crocodiles have used for millions of years. Explode from the water, grab whatever you can reach, and drag them down and hold them under until they stop. It works on zebras in Africa, it works on buffalo in Asia, and it works on cattle in Australia. She fights for maybe 30 seconds, then it's done, and you eat for 2 days. The cattle was a warm-up. Now you want something that puts up more of a fight. Water buffalo have been in Australia for about 200 years. People brought them over, some got loose, and now there's hundreds of thousands wandering the northern wetlands. They're big. Males can push 1,000 kilos. They've got horns that can kill a lion if the lion makes the wrong move. And they come to the river every single day, right to the edge, right where you can't reach them. Your first buffalo is a male, maybe 800 kilos. He walks into the shallows like he's been coming to this exact spot his entire life. Like nothing's ever bothered him here, and nobody told him that things are different now. You hit him before he gets knee deep, jaws clamping onto his muzzle, your weight yanking him forward off his feet. The water explodes into chaos around both of you. He's strong, way stronger than a cow, horns swinging wild, but it doesn't matter. You're in your element and he just stumbled into it. Physics works different when you control the water. The death roll breaks his spine before he really understands what's happening. 1 rotation, 2, and he's done. 800 kilograms of water buffalo floating there, all yours. You don't even finish all of it. You take what you want and leave the rest for the birds. There's something about predators that people forget. They don't just kill things, they change how things act. When a lion moves into a new area, the zebras start doing everything different. They graze somewhere else, they drink at different times, they avoid the spots where they've learned danger lives. It's not just about the kills themselves, it's about the fear, the constant weight of knowing something out there wants you dead. You're doing that now, not on purpose. You're not thinking strategically about any of this. You're just hungry, and you keep taking whatever wanders into your part of the river. The animals are starting to notice. The buffalo herds that used this crossing for years, the same spot where you took that 800 kilo male, they've stopped showing up. At first, it was hesitation. They'd arrive at a bank, stand around, and stare at the water like they were trying to spot something they couldn't quite see. Then they all started splitting up, some crossing while others watched, then fewer would cross at all. Now they don't come here at all. They walk an extra 15 kilometers to find a different spot, through rough country that costs them energy they would rather save, but they'd rather pay that cost than risk your water. They don't know what you are. They've never seen anything like you, but they know this part of the river is different now. They know something is here that wasn't here before, something that doesn't play by the rules they learned from regular crocodiles. Something that took their biggest male like he was nothing. 5 years. That's all it took to reshape how this whole section of ecosystem works. You're 7 meters now, pushing 8. Largest predator this continent has ever seen since the dinosaurs walked off the stage. Nothing comes near your stretch of river unless it absolutely has to. The saltwater crocodiles give you a radius of kilometers. Not just the males, but all of them. They've figured out that whatever you are, it's way above them on every list that matters. You should feel like you've won. In every way that counts, you have. You went from a 30 centimeter hatchling that everything wanted to eat to this, the top of everything, the thing that other predators run from, the reason entire herds reroute their lives. But something doesn't feel right. It happens in the mornings mostly, when the light is gray and the mist hangs low over the water and everything is quiet. You catch yourself doing something strange, raising your head, tilting it slightly, like you're trying to hear something. You're listening. For what? You're not sure. A sound, a call, something out there in this river system that might sound like you, that might answer back if you made the right noise. You never hear anything, just birds and bugs and fish splashing in the far-off bellow of some saltwater croc a few kilometers away. None of it sounds right. None of it sounds like what you're waiting for. And slowly, even though you don't have words to think it through, you're starting to understand. There's nothing out there like you in this lost world. That sound that you keep waiting for, that call you keep half expecting somewhere in the back of your brain, it doesn't exist. There's no answer coming. There never was. You became exactly what you were supposed to become. The apex predator, the thing at the absolute top. And there is nobody else up there with you, and there never will be. Every few weeks you leave your territory. Not to hunt. There's more food here than you can ever need. Not to expand, you already control more water than any predators should. You just go. You swim down the coast for kilometers, checking estuaries you've already been to a dozen times. You push up tributaries that are almost too shallow for your bulk, scraping through water that barely covers your back. You circle the edges of your range like you're searching for something, checking the same spots over and over, finding nothing new. You don't know what you're searching for, but you keep searching anyway. In the early mornings, before the sun clears the tree line, you call out. It's a sound that would have echoed across swamps in the Cretaceous, deep and low, the kind of sound that carries through water and ground for kilometers. Your species use it to find each other from far away, to claim territory, to say, I'm here. Where are you? You make that call most mornings when the light is gray and the mist sits low and everything is quiet enough to carry an answer back. And then you wait. Minutes pass, the mist drifts, birds start waking up in the paper bark. Somewhere far off, a saltwater crocodile makes its call, that short, harsh bark that they do. It's wrong. It doesn't sound anything like what you're listening for. Nothing sounds like what you're listening for. The dry season that year is brutal. Water holes that have held through 100 droughts start going dry. Billabongs shrink to cracked mud. Creeks that usually keep a trickle into October are gone by August. There's nothing left but rocks and dust and the smell of things dying. Your billabong, the one that you've claimed for a decade now, is one of the only deep water sources left for 60 kilometers. The buffalo herds that rerouted their whole migration to avoid you, they don't have options anymore. The other crossings dried up weeks ago. They have to come here, and you're waiting. You take what you want that dry season, not because you're hungry. One buffalo can keep you fed for a month. You take them because they're there, because every animal that walks into your water is making a choice between dying of thirst and taking its chances with you, and some of them lose. When you stretch out in the shallows these days, nose to tail, you're longer than most boats people use on this river, heavier than a delivery truck, and every single animal in this ecosystem has arranged their entire existence around the fact that you're here. The pigs along your stretch of water have basically vanished, not because you eat that many of them, pigs are almost too small to bother with now, but because they won't come anywhere near you. The whole population learned, somehow passed the information down to avoid that billabong, avoid that riverbend. Something lives there that nothing comes back from, a monster that isn't from this world. The plants along the banks are actually growing for the first time in decades. Buffalo used to wade in and strip the riverside plants down to bare dirt, but they don't linger now. They drink fast and leave faster, and the grasses and reeds have started filling back in. Birds follow you everywhere. Herons, eagles, kites, they've worked out that wherever you hunt, there's going to be scraps. They're not afraid of you. You're way too big to care about birds. They see you as a food source, the same way birds trail lions across the savannah, waiting for whatever the big predator leaves behind. You've become a feature of this ecosystem. The river has a monster now, and everything else is simply adjusted around that fact. You've been doing this for years now. The same patrol routes, week after week, the same call in the gray morning light, the same waiting for reply that never arrives. The saltwater crocodiles in the area hear you sometimes. They don't answer. They wouldn't dare. You're so far above them, it would be like a mouse squeaking back at a hawk. But they hear it. This strange, deep bellow coming from the giant in the deep pool, different than any crocodile sound they've ever learned. They probably think it's a threat display, some kind of warning, but it's not. It's a question. Is anybody out there? And the answer is no. It will always be no. There's nothing like you on this continent, nothing like you anywhere on the planet. Your species disappeared at the end of the Cretaceous along with the dinosaurs, along with most of the giant reptiles that once ruled every ecosystem on Earth. The last deinosuchus died 75 million years before the first human ancestor figured out how to walk upright. You're not supposed to be here. Whatever accident or miracle or cosmic joke dropped you into that crocodile nest all those years ago, you're a glitch, a one-time error, a single data point floating in empty space with nothing to connect to. The call you make every morning, the answer you keep waiting for in the silence after, it was never going to come. Not once in your entire life. Not if you lived another 100 years, not if you lived 1,000. You're the only one, and you always were. It's been 20 years now. The animals that were born after you got here, the buffalo calves taking their first drink at the river's edge, the young crocs learning to hunt in your shadow, the pigs that grew up knowing to stay away from your water. They don't know anything different. To them, you're not something new. You're not an impossible thing from an era that ended before mammals ran the show. You're just part of how the world works. The river has a monster. The monster takes what it wants. Stay away from its water unless you have no other choice. And if you don't have a choice, be fast and be careful and pray you get lucky. This is what nobody would have predicted. Back when you cracked through that eggshell as a 30-centimeter hatchling with everything in the river trying to kill you. This ecosystem didn't fight you. It didn't push back. It didn't reject you. It didn't treat you like something that didn't belong. It just made room. It shifted, adjusted its patterns around your presence like you were always supposed to be here. Because in a way that nobody could have expected, you were. For 75 million years, there's been a gap at the very top of these waterways, a niche that the saltwater crocodile was never quite large enough to fill, an empty throne since the Cretaceous ended waiting for something big enough to claim it. The ecosystem didn't know it was missing anything. The food web didn't show a hole. The space was there anyway, invisible, patient, and you filled it. You claimed a throne that nobody knew existed. You became exactly what this river system was always capable of holding, if only something had been big enough to take the seat. The warmth, the prey, the endless wetlands, the room to grow, all of it was ready. All of it was just waiting for something like you to show up. So you sit in your pool most mornings, mist on the water, birds circling overhead, hoping for scraps from whatever you last killed. The largest predator this continent has seen in millions of years, the unchallenged ruler of more territory than you could ever patrol, more water than you could ever need. And sometimes you still make that call, even though you figured out by now that nobody's going to answer. Sometimes you still swim the coastline, checking estuaries you've checked 100 times, looking for something you've accepted isn't there. You won. That's the truth of your life now. You won so completely that nothing in this ecosystem even thinks about challenging you anymore. Buffaloes walk, crocodiles flee, birds follow you. But there's no one to share any of it with. No mate, no rivals worth the name, no others of your kind bellowing across the swamp, fighting you for territory, answering your calls in the early morning gray. You're a king on a throne in an empty hall, ruling a kingdom that finally has its ruler, sitting in a seat that was always meant to be filled. The last of your kind, the only one who ever got to come back. In a world that was always supposed to have you in it, but only ever made for one you. The first thing you feel is the cold, not the killing cold. That comes later. This is just air hitting wet scales and damp feathers for the first time as you push through the shell. It's late spring in northern Canada. The tundra is barely thawing, and you are a very, very small Yutyrannus. Your mother is not. She's 9 meters long, about 30 feet of feathered muscle and teeth, somewhere around 1,400 kilograms, roughly the size of a black rhino, except built for killing rather than grazing. When she moves, the ground shakes. When she breathes, you can feel the warmth from 3 feet away. By any measure that matters, she's the largest predator this continent has seen in 10,000 years and maybe even longer. And right now, she's watching you struggle out of your egg. There are 2 other eggs in the nest. One never will hatch. It will just sit there cold and still. Whatever was inside never quite formed right. Other one hatches, but what comes out isn't moving correctly. It drags itself a few feet from the shell and then stops. Your mother watches it for a while, and then she stops watching it. By morning, it's gone, taken by something in the night, or by the cold, or by both. You're the only one that makes it out alive. This is not a gentle world, and you are not equipped for it. You're 40 kilograms, maybe, tiny and fragile, covered in wet fluff that hasn't figured out how to keep you warm yet. You can barely walk. Your eyes don't focus right. Everything around you is just shapes and sounds and the overwhelming presence of something enormous keeping you alive. That's all she does for the first few days. Keeps you alive and shields you from the wind with her body. Lets you press against her feathers when the temperature drops at night, tucking you into the warmest spot she can make. The sun doesn't fully set this far north in the summer. It dips towards the horizon and hangs there for hours, painting everything orange, but it never quite disappears. Even without true darkness though, the cold still finds you. It seeps through the ground, it rides the wind, and she's the only thing standing between you and it. The first weeks blur together. You sleep against her, wake up hungry, and she feeds you scraps of whatever she caught while you were sleeping. All you know is warmth and food and the constant presence of something that loves you and won't let anything hurt you. Summer in this place is 60 days long. That's it. That's the whole window where the tundra wakes up and pretends to be habitable. The snow melts, the lakes thaw, and the ground turns boggy and soft as the frozen layer underneath loosens its grip just enough to let things grow. For about 2 months, this place is actually crawling with life. The caribou come first, hundreds of thousands of them moving north in massive herds, heading to the places where they give birth. Your mother watches them pass. She's been studying them since before you hatched, learning their patterns, mapping the spots where they bunch up and slow down, like water crossings where the herd has to swim, or narrow valleys where running doesn't help. These are choke points where the sheer number of bodies creates confusion. When she hunts, you stay behind because you're too small to follow, you're too weak to help, too slow to get out of the way if something goes wrong. So you wait. You press yourself into the rocks or the brush or whatever cover she left you near, making yourself as small as possible while the ground shakes in the distance. Sometimes you hear sounds, bellowing, crashing, a chaos of panic that carries across the open tundra. And then it stops, and you wait for the ground to shake again in a different rhythm. The slow, heavy footsteps that mean Mom's coming back. And she always comes back, with blood on her feathers, meat in her jaws, and sometimes whole chunks of caribou that she drops in front of you without ceremony. Sometimes just the parts that she could carry. A leg, a chunk of flank, organs that steam in the cold air. You eat first, always first. You tear into whatever she brings with teeth that are still figuring out what they're for. And she watches, making sure you get enough before she takes what's left. So you eat, you grow, and the summer stretches out, and the killing is easy, and for a while it feels like this might actually be enough. But the wolves figure out you exist quite fast. There's a pack that ranges through this territory, 8 or 9 of them, gray and rangy and completely used to being the scariest thing out here. They take down caribou and harass muskox, and they've never lost a fight that mattered. As far as they know, nothing in this territory can touch them. Then your mother walks through. They try to challenge her once, just once. The whole pack spreads out in that way wolves do when they're sizing something up, circling at a distance, testing whether this thing will run or freeze or fight. Your mother doesn't do any of those. She doesn't even speed up. She just turns towards them, all 9 meters and 1,400 kilograms of her, and makes a sound you've never heard before. A low and deep noise that's more of a vibration than an actual noise, something that travels through the ground as much as the air. The wolves scatter, something in them breaks, and they run. They don't come back. A grizzly makes the same mistake a few weeks later. It's a big male, maybe 400 kilograms, following her kills at a distance and scavenging whatever she leaves behind. It's a reasonable strategy. She can't eat everything she kills, and bears have been stealing from predators for millions of years. But one day, it gets too confident. It approaches while she's still feeding and gets close enough that she notices. The fight lasts about 4 seconds. The bear limps away, trailing blood from a gash across its shoulder, and that's the last time anything challenges her for a meal. Your mother is the apex predator of this entire continent, and nothing out here has any idea how to deal with that. Wolves, bears, everything with teeth. They've all spent thousands of years at the top of the food chain. Now, there's something new, something bigger and meaner and completely outside their experience, something that doesn't fit any pattern they've evolved to handle. For 60 days a year, she owns this place. Then September comes. The temperature doesn't drop slowly, it crashes. 1 week the highs are still in the 40s, and the next week, the wind cuts through everything. The caribou start moving south. All those massive herds that spent the summer grazing on open tundra are now pouring back towards the tree line where the cold can't reach them. Your mother watches them go. The hunting gets harder almost immediately. There's fewer targets every day as the easy kills at water crossings dry up and the stragglers disappear. By mid-October, the tundra is emptying out. The herds are gone. The smaller prey has burrowed underground or moved south. What's left is sparse and scattered and getting harder to find. But the muskox stay. They don't migrate. They are built for this, with thick coats, stocky bodies, with a defensive strategy that's worked against wolves for thousands of years. When threatened, they form a circle, adults on the outside with their horns facing out, calves protected in the middle. It's a wall of muscle and bone that nothing in this ecosystem has ever managed to break. But today, your mother tries to break it. She's hungry now, burning through fat faster than the summer kills can replace it. One morning, she's approaching a muskox herd, and they wheel into formation immediately. It's tight, disciplined, a ring of lowered horns presenting no openings. She circles, she feints, but she's never seen anything like this before, and she doesn't know how to break through it. Eventually, she walks away. The muskox stay in their circle for another hour just to be safe. It's now November. The temperature hits -30, then -40. The wind chill pushes the number lower into ranges where exposed skin goes numb in minutes. Your mother's feathers are thick. They're 15 to 20 centimeters of downy fuzz covering most of her body. body, but they evolved for a different kind of cold. Hard winters, yes. Snow, yes. Not -50 with a wind that never stops blowing. She slows down. She can't afford the energy it takes to hunt every day. She starts moving less, conserving heat, pulling you close against her body when the worst of the cold hits. Her breathing gets heavier, her movements get slower, and somewhere in there, without you understanding what it means, she stops eating so that you can eat instead. You don't know what's happening. You're 4 months old, 45 kilograms, and you still think nothing can stop her. After all, she's your mother. She's the apex predator of this ecosystem. Nothing can stop this. So you press against her feathers at night, feel her warmth, and assume this is just how the world works. She keeps you alive. And that's what she does. By December, the warmth is fading. The last of her fat reserves are burning away. Every calorie she spends keeping you warm is a calorie she doesn't have for herself. The math doesn't work. It never worked, not really, but she keeps going anyway, still shielding you from the wind, still finding whatever frozen scrap she can, still putting your survival ahead of hers in a calculation that only works until it doesn't. Then one morning, 17 weeks after you hatched, she doesn't get up. You press against her. You make the sounds you've been making since you were born, the small, high calls that always brought her attention, always made her turn towards you. Nothing happens. Her eyes are open, but they're not seeing anything. Her feathers are still. No rise and fall of breath, no warmth coming off of her anymore. The cold took her. Not the wolves, not the bears, not anything with teeth or claws or the ability to fight back. Just the cold, just the math, just the equation that says something her size, burning energy at this rate, in cold this deep with food this hard to find, was never going to make it through the winter. She was the most powerful creature on this continent, and she killed everything that challenged her. But the cold didn't care. It took your mother away from you. Anyways, you stay with her for a while because you don't know what else to do. The wind keeps blowing, the temperature keeps dropping, and eventually, some part of you, some instinct older than thought, understands that staying here means dying here. So you leave. You're 40 kilograms. You've never killed anything that wasn't already dead. The next winter is 8 months away. And the only thing standing between you and the same ending is learning how to kill faster than this place can starve you. Your mother lasted 17 weeks after your birth. You're going to have to do better. 3 weeks after your mother passed, you're eating frozen scraps off of a carcass your mother killed back in October. The meat is hard as stone and tastes like nothing, but it's calories. And that's all that matters right now. The first winter doesn't kill you with one big moment. It grinds you down slowly, a little more each day through math you don't understand and can't escape. You need roughly 20 kilograms of food per day to keep your body running in temperatures this low. You're getting maybe 3. The difference comes out of your fat, then your muscle, then whatever's left after that. By February, you can see your own ribs through your feathers. So you eat lemmings, hundreds of them, maybe thousands across the winter, tiny things that weigh less than a kilogram each and have to be dug out of the snow one at a time. Each one is barely a mouthful. Each one costs almost as much energy to catch as it gives back, but you keep eating them because the alternative is nothing. You eat frozen fish from the edges of lakes where the ice is thin enough to crack, a dead fox half buried in the snowdrift, things that have been dead so long they don't smell like anything anymore. And still, the numbers don't add up. Still, every day is just the slow business of falling behind. There's a moment in late January, or maybe February, when time stops mattering, when every day looks the same, where you stop moving. You stop. You're lying in the snow behind a rock that blocks some of the wind, and the idea of getting up feels impossible. Your legs don't want to work. Your body is telling you to stay down, to conserve heat, and wait. But wait for what? Nothing's coming. Your mother is frozen somewhere behind you, and she's not getting up either. But you do. Because something in you refuses to quit. Something older than thought, older than reason, some part of instinct in your brain that's been watching things survive for 125 million years and isn't ready to stop today. So you drag yourself up and you keep going. Spring comes in late April and you're still alive. The change isn't sudden, but it's real. Days stretch longer, the snow softens, and the frozen ground starts to thaw at the edges. The first trickles of meltwater carve paths through the ice. By the time the caribou return in May, you've gained back maybe half the weight you lost. You're still weak, still slower than you should be, but you're breathing. Now comes the hard part, learning to kill. Your first hunt is pathetic. A snowshoe hare, maybe 1.5 kilograms. And you spend 20 minutes chasing it through the scrub before you corner it against a rock. The kill takes 2 seconds. 1 bite. You eat the whole thing, fur, bones, everything, and it barely counts as a snack. But here's the thing, you did it. Not your mother, not leftovers she left somewhere. You tracked something alive, you caught it, and you ended it. And it wasn't a lemming. Something changes after that. You start looking at the world differently. Not as a place where food shows up, but as a place full of things you might be able to take. Your second kill is much bigger. It's a caribou calf, maybe 3 weeks old, separated from the herd at a river crossing. The mother is on the far bank calling for it, but the current pushed the calf downstream, and now it's scrambling up the wrong side, alone and tired. You don't hesitate. The calf sees you coming and tries to run, but its legs aren't working right after the swim. You close the distance in seconds with 1 bite to the neck and the struggling stops. The taste of warm meat, real meat, something you killed at full strength, is different from anything you've eaten in months. Your whole body responds. This is what you were built for. You eat until you physically can't, and then you sleep next to the carcass and eat more when you wake up. This is what survival is supposed to feel like. The next few months are trial and error with stakes that don't forgive mistakes. You figure out that caribou are fast. Chasing a healthy adult across open ground is a waste of energy you can't afford. Water crossings are better, or choke points where speed doesn't help them and numbers work against them. Calves are easier than the adults. Stragglers are easier than calves, and anything already limping is easier than all of them. So you map the patterns. Caribou head north in late spring, south in early fall, and during migration, they cross rivers at the same spots year after year, with routes carved into their instincts over thousands of generations. If you know where to wait, they come to you. Muskox don't migrate. They cluster in small herds that never stray far from their home range, and when threatened, they form circles. Those circles are a problem. That memory sticks. The circles are what killed her, what stopped her from getting the food she needed that day. But you also remember something else. She charged straight at the center, tried to power through intimidation and muscle, and the muskox just closed ranks and waited her out. She was stronger than anything they'd ever faced, and it didn't matter, because strength alone wasn't enough. So you start watching, circling at a distance, and studying how the formation holds together, how the animals communicate, how attention shifts when you move. Eventually, you notice something. The circle is not a solid wall. It's individuals standing shoulder to shoulder, each one covering a different angle. When you approach from one side, the muskox facing you lowers their heads. The ones opposite don't. They're watching their own direction, trusting the herd to handle yours. There are seams, gaps where one animal's focus ends and another begins. You file that away because you're not ready yet. You're still too small, still too weak, but you're learning how this place works. Year 2 starts well. You're bigger now, maybe 200 kilograms, and the hunting is getting easier. The caribou migration comes through and you take 4 in 2 weeks. Your fat reserves are building, getting ahead of the numbers for the first time since she died. But then you make a mistake. Late September, the caribou are mostly gone, and there's a muskox herd grazing on a hillside half a kilometer out. You've been watching them for days, waiting for a straggler, but they stay tight with no openings. So you decide to test the circle. It's not a real attack, but just a probe. You approach upwind so they smell you coming. They snap into defensive formation the moment you get close, with adults facing out with their horns ready and calves in the middle. It's the same pattern as before. You circle for a while, feint left, watch them shift, move right, looking for that seam that you noticed last year. And there it is. A gap between 2 bulls where the horn coverage doesn't quite overlap. So you commit. What you don't account for is how fast muskox move when they have to. The bull on your right pivots the instant you go for the gap, swinging his head in a wide arc that catches you across the thigh. The horn tip drags through muscle from hip to knee, and the pain drops you to the snow. You scramble back before the rest can follow up. The bull holds position. Chasing isn't how the defense works, but the damage is done. Blood pouring down your leg, you can't put weight on it, and the winter isn't even close to ending. By October, the infection breaks, the swelling drops, and new tissue starts filling the gap, but you're weaker than you've been since that first winter. The fat reserves from the summer are gone. Ribs are showing through the feathers again. November, December, temperatures pass 40 below. Every day the same question. Is this the day the numbers finally stop working? Spring arrives 6 days before they would have. 6 days, that's the margin. One more week of winter and you would have ended up frozen on the tundra. Same as her. But you made it and you learned something. The circle isn't unbreakable. It's a puzzle. And the piece you were missing wasn't strength. It was patience. You committed too early, before the opening was real, and the bull had time to react. Next time, you wait longer. Make them show you the gap before you move. Don't give them time to adjust. By year 3, you're 400 kilograms now, more than double what you weighed when the horns caught you. The scar on your thigh has faded to a ridge of thick tissue under your feathers. It's a reminder every time you look down. You find a muskox herd again in early October. It's a different herd, but the same formation. They snap into their circle the moment they spot you, and you begin the process. Circling, watching, waiting. This time, you don't commit. You circle for almost an hour. The muskox hold their positions, but you can see them tiring. Heads starting to droop, attention starting to drift. The seams getting wider, and then you see it. 2 cows on the far side instead of bulls. Smaller animals, shorter horns, and a sliver of space between them. You don't charge the gap, you charge the opposite side. The bulls on the near side brace for impact. Heads down, horns ready, but you're not trying to hit them. You veer left at the last second and loop around the outside and come at the real gap from an angle that they weren't watching. The cows try to close ranks, but they're too slow. You hit the seam at full speed, shouldering through before either one can swing. Now you're inside the circle. It's chaos. The formation shatters. The muskox are scattering in every direction. The calves are exposed. You grab the nearest one and you're out before the adults can regroup. 10,000 years. That's how long the circle defense held. It stopped everything that tried to break it. Your mother couldn't even crack it. And you just walked right through. By the end of year 3, you're 600 kilograms. By year 5, you've hit adult mass, around 1,200 kilograms, with feathers that have thickened into a dense coat and legs that cover ground faster than anything else on the tundra. The hunting isn't hard anymore. Caribou crossings are routine. You know every choke point, every river ford, every place where the herds bunch up and slow down. You stand in the water while they swim past, picking off stragglers with the rest panic forward, too scared to help each other. Muskox circles are solved. You've broken enough of them that some herds don't even try anymore. They scatter the moment you appear, which makes it even easier. A running muskox alone is slower than one in formation. The wolves have now understood what you are now. The same pack your mother scattered still ranges through this territory. They don't challenge you. They don't even come close. Instead, they've learned to follow at a distance, reading your movements, waiting for you to finish eating. When you leave a carcass, they move in for whatever's left. It's not competition. It's more like an arrangement. You kill, they clean up, and it works for everyone, as long as you are the apex predator. The grizzlies have adapted too. A big male used to work the same river crossings you do. You know, good fishing, easy caribou, prime ground. The first time he spots you, he charges. It's typical bear thinking. Anything that doesn't run is a threat. He stops about 20 feet out. Something in his brain does the math. Your size, your stance, the way you're not moving, and he decides that this isn't worth it. He backs off, and next season, he's working a different river 3 valleys over. But the polar bears are different. They're bigger than grizzlies, 700 kilograms for a large male, and meaner. They evolved hunting seals and walruses, things that can't fight back. They don't even know what losing feels like. And you meet one in year 4. It's late autumn. You've taken a muskox on a frozen lake near the coast. The polar bear smells blood from downwind and comes to see. When it spots you, it doesn't hesitate. It just charges. All 700 kilograms of Arctic predator coming straight across the ice. You turn to face it. You've learned that running just makes them confident. The bear closes fast, faster than you expected, but it's committed now. It can't change direction, it can't pull back. You sidestep at the last second and catch it across the shoulder. The bite doesn't go deep because polar bear fat is thick, but it's enough. The bear stumbles before it can recover, and you're on top of it. Your weight pins it down, and your jaws find the back of its neck. Before it figures out what's happening, it's over. The bear pulls away with a chunk of flesh missing and blood matting its fur. It retreats north, limping badly, and doesn't stop until it's out of sight. Word starts getting around. The polar bears stay on the coast after that, hunting seals on the sea ice, staying clear of the tundra that you've claimed. The interior is yours, and by year 5, nothing can challenge you. Wolves scatter when they catch your scent. Grizzlies abandon fresh kills the moment you appear. Polar bears know to stay in their lane. The prey animals that survived meeting you have taught their young to run at the first sign of something big and fluffy on 2 legs. You are the most dangerous thing on this continent, the largest, strongest, most efficient killer this ecosystem has ever seen in 10,000 years. You survived what killed your mother. You learned what she never had time to learn. You became something this place had never encountered. Winter still comes every year. The cold still doesn't care how powerful you are. The numbers still have to work, but you're bigger than she was, stronger. You know things about this place that she never figured out, and you still spend every winter burning through fat reserves, hunting muskox in the dark, and counting down days until spring. There's nothing in this ecosystem that can challenge you now. Not wolves, not bears, not the formations prey animals have perfected over millennia. You are the apex. Nothing comes close, but winter always comes back. And the question was never whether something could kill you. The question was whether the cold would take you the way it took her. 7 winters down, maybe 8. You stop keeping track somewhere around the 6. At some point, the seasons blur together. Each one runs into the next until they stop feeling separate periods and start feeling like one long loop. Summer is hunting, autumn is building reserves, winter is surviving, and spring is recovering. Nothing's broken yet. You're 9 meters long now, 1,400 kilograms of feathered muscle and teeth, the same size your mother was when she died, except you've been this size for years, and you know things that she never had time to learn. Every water crossing on the tundra, every choke point where caribou bunch up, every muskox herd's home range, every wolf pack's territory, every frozen lake that's safe to walk on, and every one that'll drop you through the ice if you step wrong. The landscape lives in your head now, mapped out in detail. No other animal here can match. You don't have to think about where to hunt anymore. You just go where the food is, and the food is wherever you decide to look. Summer is pure dominance. You move through the caribou migration with an ease that borders on lazy. The crossing you prefer, which is a narrow stretch of river where the current slows and the far bank rises steep, has become almost routine. You wait in the shallows while the herd pushes through. You take what you want. The rest keeps swimming, too committed to the crossing to turn back, too panicked to help each other. Some days you bring down 3 before the sun even clears the horizon. Caribou have noticed. They're not stupid. They pass information down through generations, patterns of danger and safety encoded in the routes that they travel. Over the years you've been here, those routes have started to bend. Herds that used to come straight through your territory now swing wide. They add days to their migration, burn calories that they can barely spare, just to stay out of your range. You're watching them change, not over millions of years, but right now in front of you. It's the quick kind of adjustment that prey makes when something new shows up and starts rewriting the rules. The caribou that avoid you survive to teach their calves to avoid you. The ones that don't. Survival of the fittest. But the muskox, well, they gave up on circles. Not all of them. Some herds still form up when they see you coming, especially the young ones that haven't lost anyone yet. They go into that ancient formation, with adults facing out, horns lowered, and calves in the middle. Their bodies remembering what to do even though their brains don't understand why it stopped working. But the herds that have faced you before, the ones that watched you walk through their wall and drag out a calf while they stood there helpless, they don't even try anymore. They scatter the moment they catch your scent, running in every direction, hoping you'll chase someone else. It's actually worse for them. A scattered herd is easier to pick off than a tight formation, but they do it anyway because the circles failed and they don't have anything else. Thousands of years of instinct abandoned in a single generation because you showed up and broke the pattern. And wolves figured out a different approach entirely. It's weird, honestly. There's a whole economy now centered on whatever you kill. When you hunt, they follow. Not close, never close, but near enough to see what you're doing. When you finish feeding and move on, they move in. Ravens that have been circling overhead land on the carcass before the wolves even arrive. Arctic foxes wait at the edges for scraps. Wolverines show up after everyone else has taken their share and crack the bones for marrow. You've become the center of a food web that didn't exist before you got here. Everything downstream of your kills, scavengers, the tiny things that break down whatever's left, all of it orbits around you now. You changed how this whole place works just by being here. But the strange thing is, none of it fills the space. You don't think about her often anymore. Years pass without the memory surfacing, but sometimes in the quiet stretches of summer, when the hunting is easy, There's nothing to do but wait. Something pulls at you, a shape in the distance that looks familiar, a smell on the wind that doesn't match anything living. In year 6, or maybe 7, the count stopped mattering. You travel back to where she died. There's no logic to it, no reason that would hold up under any kind of thinking. Just a direction that feels right, a path your feet seem to know even though your brain never chose it. You walk for 3 days, past crossings you've hunted 100 times, past muskox territory you cleared out years ago, past frozen lakes and windswept ridges and all of the landmarks of your life here, until you reach a slope that looks familiar. The ridge where she used to watch for caribou, the shallow lake where she drank, the hollow in the ground, half buried now under new growth and permafrost heave, where you last saw her chest rise and fall. Her bones are scattered, picked clean years ago by the same scavengers that follow you now, bleached white by seasons of sun and cold and wind. Some have been dragged off by foxes, others have sunk into the thawing ground during summer and frozen back in when the cold returned. They become part of the landscape itself, but enough remains that you can see what she was. The skull, cracked now along the side, the ribs spreading across the tundra in a wide arc, the long leg bones that once shook the ground when she moved. You stand over what's left for a long time, and then you do something you haven't done in years, something that comes from somewhere deep enough to bypass everything you've learned about being alone in this place. You make a sound, the low rumble your species used for contact call, the sound she made when she wanted you near. It rises from your chest and travels through your throat and rolls out across the empty tundra. It spreads in every direction until it fades into wind and distance, but nothing answers. Nothing ever has. Nothing ever will. You are the only thing on this continent, maybe on this planet, maybe on this lost world that knows what that sound means, and you've been making it into silence since the day she stopped breathing. There's no pack waiting for you somewhere, no mate, no other Yutyrannus anywhere on Earth. Your species went extinct 125 billion years ago, and you're just a loose thread that showed up late. One last echo of something the universe already finished with, a cruel cosmic joke. You are your entire species, and you always have been. And ever since she died, you always have been. When you're gone, that's the end of it. No more echoes, no more jokes, no one left to remember what that contact call meant. Despite all of that, it doesn't make the winters easier though. You're bigger now, stronger, more efficient than she ever managed to be. You know every trick this place can throw at you, and still every winter is a countdown, with fat building through autumn, fat burning through winter, watching the margin shrink week by week as the cold drags on and the muskox get harder to find under deeper snow. The scar on your thigh aches when the temperature drops past 30 below. Some mornings it's stiff, the old tissue pulling tight, reminding you of the year you almost didn't make it. Wounds heal slower than they used to. A gash that would have closed in 2 weeks when you were young takes a month now, sometimes longer. Your body is still powerful, still efficient, but the edges are starting to fray. Reactions a half second slower. Stamina burning out a little faster. One winter, maybe this one, maybe the next, maybe 10 from now, the numbers will finally fail. You'll burn through your reserves too fast. You'll miss a kill that you needed. The spring will arrive a week late instead of early. There won't be anything left to carry you through. That's how this ends. Not with something bigger finally bringing you down, not with a fight you can't win, just with the cold and the numbers, the same it's always been and the same as it was for her. The tundra will close over the space you leave. The caribou will take back the crossings. The muskox will start forming circles again, teaching their calves that the defense works because nothing's breaking it anymore. In a few generations, nothing here will remember you existed. The wolves will find something else to follow. The ravens won't tell stories about what used to hunt here, but you were here. You survived what killed your mother. You learned what she never had time to figure out. You broke defenses that held for thousands of years and bent an entire ecosystem around you. You became the most powerful predator this continent has ever seen since the Ice Age, and you did it alone, starting from 40 kilograms in a pile of frozen scraps on the day she stopped moving. That has to be enough. You can master every challenge, outlast every threat, climb to the top of every hierarchy this place has, and you'll still be alone at the end of it, still making sounds that no one answers, still carrying something that dies when you do. Your mother lasted 17 weeks since your birth. You've lasted years, and you might last decades before the cold finally catches up. But when it does, and it will, eventually, patiently, the way it takes everything, the world won't slow down to notice. The tundra will keep turning. The seasons will keep cycling, life will keep doing what life does, filling in the gaps, moving on, and forgetting. You'll just be gone. The cold doesn't keep a score, it just keeps coming. At least you made it mean something while you were here. Something is moving outside the shell. You push and light cracks through. You're 8 inches tall. The claws looking down at you are longer than your whole body, and they're built for precision, not power, and that's going to matter. 5 prehistoric apex predators, 1 ecosystem, 1,000 days. You're a megaraptor in the middle of your colony of megaraptors. And day 1 starts now. Who will survive and who will be the king of the predators? The first thing you understand is pressure. Something outside the shell is making the whole world shake. You don't have words for any of this yet. Not for darkness, not for pressure, not for the vibration moving through you like a second heartbeat. You just know the space around you is shrinking and there's a sound that you can feel before it reaches your ears. You push against the wall that isn't a wall and something gives. Light hits your eyes before they know how to process light. Everything is blur and brightness in a shape that you can't make sense of, except for the claws. Those register immediately. They're curved and dark and longer than your entire body, attached to something that blocks out the sky. That's your mother. You won't know her name for a while, but you'll know what she means right away. Safety. Those claws are the barrier between you and everything that wants you dead. And as long as they're there, you get to keep breathing. Behind her, something moves in the trees. Your eyes are still adjusting, but the shape comes through anyway. 2 legs, smaller than your mother, and horns above its eyes. A Carnotaurus testing the perimeter, checking if there's opportunity here. Ridge doesn't chase it. She doesn't even move towards it. She just stands there with those claws visible until the Carnotaurus decides this isn't worth the risk and disappears back into the brush. That's your first real lesson. Apex predators don't chase. They hold their ground and wait for the world to move around them. You have 5 siblings. You'll learn to tell them apart by behavior and not appearance, since you all kind of look the same. Cinder is the curious one, always wandering to the edge of whatever space Ridge has marked as safe, poking at things she should probably leave alone. Talon pushes limits, bold in a way that looks like confidence but might just be an inability to recognize danger. Dust is aggressive, always looking for something to prove. Cole follows Dust everywhere. It's a shadow that forgot how to lead. And Ash hangs back, careful, waiting for someone else to go first. You watch too, but not in the way Ash watches, not frozen and hesitant. You're processing, trying to find the pattern underneath all the chaos while your siblings stumble through learning the same territory you're mapping in your head. Your forest education happens fast. You learn about the forest quite quickly. Your mother, Ridge, doesn't teach the way you would teach if you could teach. There are no lessons, no explanations. She just exists in this environment, and you learn by watching what she does, and more importantly, what she doesn't do. She doesn't leave the forest. The canopy here is dense, cutting the light into blades that move when the wind moves. The ground cover is thick enough to hide in, but open enough to run through. And Ridge owns it the way something only owns space when it's willing to kill for it. Beyond the trees, the floodplain stretches flat and bright and wrong. There's too much sky, too many angles where something could come at you. Ridge never goes there. When prey wanders close to the tree line, she lets it drift back out. She hunts in the shadows where her claws matter more than raw speed. Your own claws are growing faster than the rest of you. Your hands look wrong. They're too big, like weapons meant for a body you haven't grown into yet. Someday they'll be able to do what Ridges wanted to do when that Carnotaurus tested the perimeter. That's what you're becoming. A few weeks in, you understand how small that ambition might be. There's a gap in the canopy where a tree fell before you were born. Ridge usually avoids it. It's too exposed and too visible from above, but you're young and curious, so when she's hunting the other side of the territory, you wander over to look. Through the gap, past the tree line, something is moving across the floodplain. Your mother is the biggest thing you know. She's 10 meters of muscle and killing tools. In this shape, this distant thing crossing the open ground like it owns the whole horizon makes her look like nothing. Tyrannosaurus Rex. You don't know the name. You don't need to. What you need to know is already screaming through every nerve. That thing exists. It's out there, and it doesn't live in the forest. You better stay in the forest. Cinder finds the river during the 3rd week. She's always finding things. That's her whole identity. The curious one, the explorer, the sibling who treats every boundary like a suggestion. The river curves through the eastern edge of Ridge's territory, close enough that you can hear it when the wind is right. Ridge never goes there. The first time Cinder comes back wet, nothing seems wrong. She found a stream that feeds the main channel and drank from the edge and survived. You note this. 2 days later, she goes back. You follow at a distance because watching is what you do. The water runs slow and flat and quiet. Too quiet. There's no fish breaking the surface, no insects near the bank, just stillness that doesn't feel like peace. Cinder drinks from the edge and leaves, and nothing happens. But the third time, the stream is lower. Cinder goes further out, towards the deeper water where the stream joins the main channel. You watch from the brush. You watch a reflection in the surface, small and strange and completely unaware. And then you see it, something under the surface, a shape long and patient sliding closer. You try to make a sound, some kind of warning, but your throat produces nothing because mega raptors don't communicate that way. The shape keeps sliding and Cinder keeps drinking, and there's nothing you can do but watch. Her reflection reaches out towards the water, and the water reaches back. The surface explodes upward, and something ancient has her before she can move. Jaws longer than Ridge's claws, a body that was waiting in that water before you were born. Spinosaurus. You won't learn the name for a long time, but you'll remember that shape forever. There's no scream, no struggle, just the sound of water closing over where your sister used to be, and then silence. There's 5 of you now. Ridge finds you frozen at the edge of the brush, staring at the water. She positions herself between you and the river and waits until you understand it's time to go. The water has rules you didn't know existed. Something lives down there that your forest instincts never prepared you for, and Ridge avoids the water for that reason. The juvenile Tyrannosaurus show up about a month in. Not the adults. You've seen one adult once through that gap in the canopy. It was a moving mountain that didn't know you exist. These are different. These are close to your size. The first time you spot them, they're hunting an ornithopod at the forest edge. It's 4 juveniles working together, coordinated and fast, cutting off escape routes like they've done this 100 times. The ornithopod has no chance. They bring it down in the open ground where the trees thin out, and then they eat shoulder to shoulder while you watch from the shadows. There are 4 of them, hunted together. You're one of 5 siblings now, and you've never hunted anything together. You hunt alone. That's just how you're built. And that fact is about to matter more than you want it to. As the weeks pass, the juveniles get closer. You see them most mornings now, working the edge where the forest meets the floodplain. They're learning the territory, your territory, or at least the edges of it. Dust decides he's tired of watching this. He's aggressive. He always has been. Something in him reads those juveniles as a challenge rather than a warning. He moves towards the forest edge, and Cole follows because Cole always follows. They come back with matching wounds. Dust has a gash across his shoulder that'll scar. Cole won't stop shaking. Dust's behavior says it all, that they're fast, and faster than he thought. But he doesn't learn the right lesson, and neither does Talon. Talon decides that he can take one. The logic, if you can call it logic, goes something like this. Dust got hurt, but Dust survived. Ridge once killed a Giganotosaurus. You heard about it from the way that she carries herself, even if you didn't see it. And apex predators don't run. So maybe being bold is how you survive. Maybe standing your ground is what separates the ones who make it from the ones who don't. And Talon moves towards the edge, and you follow him. You don't know why. Maybe it's because your mother holds ground and that's the pattern you've been watching your whole life. But maybe it's because Talon is bigger than you, and if he thinks this is survivable, maybe he's right. Maybe some part of you just isn't ready to be the sibling who stayed behind. Whatever the reason, you're 20 meters into the open when one of them sees you. The juvenile Rex is fast. You knew they were fast. You watched them hunt, but knowing and feeling are different things. It moves towards you, and 2 more appear from the scrubland, and suddenly you understand what working together actually means. It means that no matter which direction you run, one of them is already going to be there. Talon gets bit first. The jaws close on his flank and something crunches. And the sound that comes out of him is nothing you've heard a megaraptor make. You get lucky. The one coming for you misses the killing bite by an inch and takes skin instead of your neck. And then you're running, all 3 of you crashing back towards the tree line while Ridge explodes out of the forest with her claws up. The juveniles retreat. You make it back. Dust is shaking. Talon is bleeding from a wound that'll scar for life. You're barely hurt, which somehow feels worse. Like you didn't matter enough to target properly. Talon's wounds heal over the following weeks. The bite marks become permanent fixtures, evidence of the day that he learned nothing. Some animals get hurt and recalibrate. They understand the pain was a message. Talon got hurt and just decided he wasn't bold enough. He wasn't ready, and next time will be different. You watch him test the edges again as soon as he can walk without limping. About 2 months in, a subadult Giganotosaurus wanders into the wrong part of the forest. Maybe it got lost, Maybe it was chasing prey and stopped paying attention to where it was going. Maybe it was just young and stupid, the way you were young and stupid when you followed Talon into the open. What matters is this: it enters the clearing where Ridge is resting, and it doesn't leave. Ridge moves before the Giganotosaurus fully understands where it is, with no hesitation, no posturing, no warning display. There's 11 seconds of violence and then a body on the forest floor. The Giga had size, 2 tons, maybe more. In the open, that might have mattered. The forest isn't the open. And here, the trees break up charges and the sightlines favor whoever knows the ground. Ridge knows the ground better than anything else alive. Her claws find the throat, the Giga falls, and Ridge stands over it while it dies. You watch the whole thing from the interior shadows. The blood soaks into the soil, and the Giganotosaurus makes sounds that don't have names. And all you can think is, that's what I'll be one day. What you don't know, and what you can't know yet, is that this only works here. Ridge's way depends on terrain she controls and predators stupid enough to fight on her terms. Outside this forest, something bigger is already in charge of everything. But you don't know that yet. All you know is what you saw. Your mother standing over something that should have killed her, surviving because she didn't run. It's a few weeks later, and the juvenile T-Rex keep getting closer. You see them every morning now, working the edge where the trees thin out. One of them has learned patience. It sits in the shadows and just watches, learning when prey comes to the edge and what routes they take. You see the pattern forming. You can't stop it. Dust is hunting the territory edges again. The prey's better there. Ornithopods that graze the transition zone, fatter than anything in the dense trees. Cole follows him, like always. The patient juvenile Rex shifts position, closer to where Dust has been working. 3 days later, Dust and Cole don't come back. You don't go with Ridge when she checks the site. You already know what happened. You watched the threat build for over a week and couldn't do anything about it because megaraptors don't warn each other. You are not built for that kind of communication. You just watch and remember. By the 3rd month, it's you and Talon and Ash and Ridge. Half the siblings you started with are gone. The dry season is pressing in. You can feel it in the streams running thinner, the prey clustering closer to the water that's left. Everything is about to get harder. Ash is the careful one. She survived this long because she hangs back, watches, and waits for someone else to go first. But careful doesn't fix thirsty, and she hasn't found enough moisture in 3 days of hunting. There's a stream still running through the forest. You've been avoiding it. The water sits too flat, too quiet. It's the same wrongness you felt before Cinder died. But Ash is desperate, and desperation overrides instinct. You watch from the brush. The water is still, a shape beneath the surface. Ash approaches slowly, carefully, the way she does everything. And that's when the water explodes, and a Spinosaurus has her clamped in its jaws. By the 100-day mark, it's you and Talon and Ridge. 3 megaraptors in a forest that used to hold 8. Here's what you've learned. The big apex predators aren't your problem. Not directly. The adult T-Rex stay out of the forest. It's too dense and too much work for the reward. The Giganotosaurus learned its lesson when Ridge opened that throat. The Spinosaurus owns the water, so you just have to stay out of the water. But your problem is with the juveniles. The young T-Rex are hunting the exact same prey you need, the same size, the same territory, the same everything. And there are more of them, hunting in groups while you hunt alone because that's how you're built. Your mother can hold this forest. She owns it the way apex predators own space, with presence, with violence, and with the promise of those claws finding any throat stupid enough to challenge her. But outside this forest, you're not apex, you're competition. And the competition is learning your patterns while you hide in the shadows, hoping the way your mother taught you will be enough. The dry season is coming. The streams are going quiet. The rivers are shrinking. Every predator in this ecosystem is about to converge on the same water. The forest has kept you alive for 100 days, but it's not going to protect you from what happens next. Everything starts moving towards the water, and suddenly the forest isn't yours anymore. The dry season doesn't creep in. It closes like a fist. The streams that kept you alive stop running. The prey animals that used to scatter through Ridge's territory are clustering near whatever moisture remains. And behind them, following the same desperation, comes everything else. The river your mother avoided all year is now the only reliable water for miles. The Spinosaurus have stacked up at the remaining deep channels, shapes in the water, barely moving, patient in a way that makes your skin crawl. They're not hunting, they're waiting. Anything desperate enough to drink becomes something desperate enough to eat. The Giganotosaurus are pushing through in waves, following sauropod herds that follow the water. And the T-Rex, the adults now, not just the juveniles, are working the edges between every habitat. Everywhere you look, predators are converging on the same shrinking resources. This is when you learn that territory doesn't mean what you thought it meant. A female Giganotosaurus and her juvenile cut through the forest one morning, right through the middle of Ridge's territory. Like the boundary markers don't exist. Your mother watches them pass. She doesn't challenge. She doesn't posture. She doesn't do any of the things you've watched her do for months. She just lets them go. You're confused until you realize what's actually happening. The rules have changed. The logic that kept everyone separated has collapsed. Nobody's fighting over hunting grounds right now because hunting grounds don't matter if you can't drink. The only thing that matters is water, and there isn't enough water for anyone to defend. Everyone's just trying to survive until the rains come back. The water teaches you something new about fear. You need to drink. You've been getting moisture from kills, but it's not enough anymore. There's a narrow stream still trickling through the interior, one of the last wet spots in Ridge's territory. You approach at dusk when the Spinosaurus should be less active. Something moves upstream, a shape sliding beneath the surface, turning towards the sound of your footsteps. You leave without drinking. That night you tear into a kill and swallow the blood before it can soak into the ground. A few days later, Talon tries the same stream in the middle of the day. He's always been bolder than the situation calls for, and the dry season hasn't changed that. The Spinosaurus that comes up at him is bigger than anything you've seen in the water, a shape that shouldn't be able to hide in a stream that shallow, but somehow did. Talon makes it to the bank, barely. The claw marks on his leg are deep enough that you can see something white underneath. He'll walk with a limp for the rest of his life, however long that turns out to be. He still doesn't learn, and you're starting to think that he never will. A few weeks later, the ecosystem starts taking things you can't replace. The prey is bunched up near the remaining water, which means the hunting is actually decent if you can survive the other predators working the same herds. Ridge makes a kill, a hadrosaur that wandered too deep into the forest, probably fleeing something worse near the river. It's good meat, enough for days, but that smell travels. A Giganotosaurus tracks the scent from half a kilometer out. It enters the territory like it owns the place because right now, in the worst of the dry season, it basically does. Ridge stands over the carcass. This is her territory. This is her kill. Apex predators hold ground. That's what you've learned watching her. That's the whole survival strategy. But the Giganotosaurus doesn't care. The fight is fast and ugly. Ridge moves first, going for the throat the way she did with that subadult months ago. But this one is bigger. This one is ready. Her claws find the neck, but not deep enough to matter. The Giga's teeth find her shoulder, and something tears. Both animals break off. The Giganotosaurus takes the kill and leaves. Ridge stands in the empty clearing, bleeding from a wound that looks wrong. Too deep, too ragged, meat visible under the skin. You watch from the interior shadows, and for the first time in your life, your mother looks small. The wound doesn't heal. Within a week, the flesh around the bite is hot, swollen in a way that suggests something bad is happening underneath. 2 weeks after the fight, Ridge can barely hunt. The shoulder won't support her weight during a charge, which means she can't use those claws the way she's supposed to. You and Talon bring food when you find it, but two juveniles can't feed an adult who can't feed herself. It's not enough. It was never going to be enough. A month after the fight, she stops eating. The infection has spread into her chest, and something in her body has decided that fighting it requires more energy than taking in food. This is what dying looks like when you're too big to die quickly, too strong to give up, but too wounded to survive. You stay with her because there's nothing else to do. The pattern you've been following since you cracked out of that shell is lying on the forest floor, burning up from the inside, and all you can do is watch. Ridge dies in the same territory where she was born. The forest takes her. Within a week, you won't be able to find the spot. Within a month, there won't be anything left to mark. 60-some days from wound to death, and the thing that killed her wasn't the Giganotosaurus. It was the choice she made to stand her ground over a kill she couldn't afford to lose. That's what holding ground actually costs. That's what apex predators do, right up until it kills them. So you try to be what she was. You stand where Ridge used to stand. You patrol the edges of the territory she carved out. When a young Carnotaurus wanders too close, you drive it off with a display of those claws that you've finally grown into. 6 meters of Megaraptor, doing exactly what your mother did. For a few days, it works. The territory feels like it might actually be yours. And then a subadult T-Rex enters the forest. You should run. Everything you've learned says run, but the pattern says hold your ground and ridge held ground. And maybe if you're good enough and fast enough and your claws find the right angle, but the T-Rex is faster than you in the tight spaces where you thought you had an advantage. It's bigger than you, 8 meters to your 6, and those extra 2 meters matter more than you want them to. Your claws score its flank, but you can't get the throat angle that Ridge used to kill that Giganotosaurus. You're not her. You're not even close. It nearly gets your neck before you manage to break contact and run. You survive because it doesn't chase you into the dense interior where the trees are too close together for its bulk. Not because you won, not because the pattern worked, but because you got lucky again. And luck is a resource that runs out. You leave Ridge's territory. His talon stays, still bold, still thinking he can hold what your mother held. You go deeper into the forest where the trees press close and the canopy blocks almost all the light. The hunting is worse here. Less prey, less water, less everything. But there's also less competition because nothing big wants to work this hard for this little. You don't know what you're looking for. You just know the old way doesn't work. Days later, you find another Megaraptor deeper in the forest than you've ever seen one of your own kind. She's been pushed here by the same pressures that pushed you. Territory collapse, predator compression, the slow math of a dry season that hasn't ended yet. You circle each other for an hour. Megaraptors don't share space. You're built for solitary hunting, not cooperation, but neither of you attacks. In the weeks that follow, something shifts. You're not working together. That's not how your brain is wired. But you're not avoiding each other either. You start hunting the same areas without fighting over them. You start watching each other's approach angles, covering ground for the one that isn't covering. Ember. That's what you'll call her, because something about the way she moves through the low light reminds you of fire catching. You try to hunt at midday. The prey is more active then, and easiest to track. A T-Rex catches your scent before you get within striking range of anything. You spend 2 hours frozen in the brush while it patrols the area, testing the air for whatever it smelled. You try again a few days later, different area, different T-Rex, the same result. Midday hunting is suicide. Then you notice something about Ember. She doesn't hunt when you hunt. While you're trying to work the middle of the day, she's moving at dawn, dusk, the edges of the light when everything is gray and the shadows stretch long. You thought she was just being cautious, avoiding the active hours, playing it safe. And then you watch her make a kill. The T-Rex aren't moving yet. The prey animals are just starting to stir. Amber flows through brush that would be impossible at midday. There's too much light and too visible, but in the gray pre-dawn, she's almost invisible. Her claws find something vital before the prey knows she's there. You're starving. Nothing you've tried has worked. The old patterns are killing you slowly, and you're running out of time to find new ones. You try Ember's way, a dawn hunt, barely any light, the world caught between night and day. The prey doesn't see you coming. The T-Rex aren't active yet. Your claws work exactly the way you're supposed to in the dim light, in the dense growth where precision matters more than power. You eat. Something in your brain rewires, not consciously. You don't have the capacity for conscious strategy, but the pattern locks in anyway. Dawn, dusk, the margins of daylight, the hours when the apex predators aren't looking for you because they're calibrated for a different time of day. The gap exists and you just learned where it is. But the Carnotaurus don't find it. You start noticing their absence around the 5-month mark. They used to be common in the scrubland margins. Fast hunters, good at taking mid-sized prey in open terrain. You'd see them every few days, working in the edges of the forest. Weeks go by and you haven't seen one. The scrubland is juvenile T-Rex territory now. It has been for a while. Same prey size, same habitat. The juveniles hunt in groups while the Carnotaurus hunt alone. This is what extinction looks like up close. Not a war, not some dramatic last stand, just a slow squeeze that nobody notices until it's already over. The Carnotaurus aren't losing fights. They're losing every competition that happens before a fight would even start. Every hunt where a T-Rex juvenile gets there first, every territory that slowly stops being worth defending, every generation that produces fewer offspring because there's less food to go around. Someone designed this ecosystem. Some cruel person put 5 apex predators together and wanted to see what would happen just to entertain an audience for likes and subscribes, which you should do if you're enjoying this video. But this is what happens. Species that can't find a gap just stop existing. There's no drama, no moment that you can point to. They become the wrong answer to every question the ecosystem asks, and eventually the ecosystem stops asking them. The Carnotaurus faction is gone. You didn't watch them die, you just stopped seeing them. And then you realize that you actually stopped seeing them quite a while ago. You're still here because you found a different answer. You're still here because Ember showed you a gap that nobody else was using, and you were desperate enough to try it. But Talon is still out there somewhere, and Talon hasn't found anything new. He appears at the edge of your territory about 6 months in. Thinner than you remember, more scars than you remember. He couldn't hold Ridge's territory. The T-Rex pushed him out, and whatever he tried after, well, that didn't work either. He's here because he has nowhere else to go. You try to show him the dawn hunting, the dusk patterns, the routes through the interior where size doesn't matter and precision is everything. Ember shows him too, in her own way. He watches, he tries, and then he hunts at midday again. Old habits, the way Ridge did it, the way that worked when your mother was alive and the ecosystem hadn't compressed into whatever it is now. You watch him head towards the brighter part of the forest where the canopy thins, the light is good for tracking prey. You know what's out there. You know what happens to things that hunt in the open hours. Some animals learn, some animals watch everything you show them and still can't let go of the pattern that's killing them. By the 700-day mark, you understand something the other predators don't. T-Rex aren't just dominant. They're the thing everything else has to organize around. Every species in this ecosystem is either adapting to their presence or slowly vanishing. The Carnotaurus couldn't adapt. The Giganotosaurus adapted by going bigger, following prey the T-Rex don't bother with. The Spinosaurus adapted by owning the water where land-based rules don't apply. And you adapted by disappearing. The margins of daylight, the interior, the hours and spaces that the apex predators have decided aren't worth their time. The question is whether you can hold it long enough to matter. You've become something your mother wouldn't recognize. Dawn breaks through the canopy in gray threads and you're already moving. The light is barely there, just enough to see shapes, just enough to track movement. In an hour, the T-Rex will be active. In 2 hours, hunting in this forest will be impossible. But right now, in this narrow window between darkness and daylight, you're the only predator that matters. Your claws find something vital before the prey knows you're there. Quick, clean. This is what 800 days of practice made you. Not stronger instincts or better weapons, just a different clock, a different set of hours, a life built around the gaps in someone else's schedule, the apex predator's schedule. Ember is now carrying eggs. You can tell by the way she moves, lower to the ground, more careful with her center of gravity. Something protective kicks in, a response you don't need to understand to feel. The territory you've carved out isn't much. Dense trees, heavy canopy, almost no light in the middle of the day. Worse hunting than Ridge's territory ever offered, but it's yours in a way that Ridge's territory never really was, because nobody bigger than you wants it. You've been alive for over 700 days in an ecosystem designed to kill everything in it. That just might be a record. But Talon is still hunting wrong. You've tried to show him. Ember has tried. The dawn patterns, the dusk approaches, the routes through the interior where size matters less than precision. He watches, he nods, or whatever the mega raptor equivalent of nodding is, and then he goes back to doing the things the way Ridge taught him. And look, you get it. Changing everything you know is hard. Abandoning the pattern your mother lived and died by feels like betrayal, even when following it is suicide. But watching him hunt at midday for the 3rd day in a row while a T-Rex is literally learning his schedule, that's not being bold. That is literally being stupid. It all starts on one unremarkable morning. Talon makes a kill at the forest's edge. Middle of the day, full sun, completely exposed. He eats in a clearing where anything with eyes could spot him from 100 meters away. You watch from the interior, knowing this is wrong, knowing you can't stop it, because megaraptors don't communicate warnings. You're not built for it. You can only watch him make a mistake and hope that that mistake doesn't kill him. The next day, he's back. The same clearing, the same time, the same complete disregard for everything the last 700 days should have taught him. The prey is easier here. You understand that the light is better, the ground is more open. This is how Ridge hunted, and Ridge survived for years. But Ridge is dead, and she died because she held ground when she should have run. And on the 3rd day, you see the shape. It's in the distant tree line, half hidden in the shadows where the forest meets the scrubland. Large, patient, watching the same clearing where your brother has been feeding. An adult T-Rex, a big male, learning Talon's schedule the way the juveniles learned Dust and Cole's schedule over the 600 days ago. Your whole body wants to cross the distance between you, to drag Talon back into the dense interior where the new rules apply, to make him understand that being watched is the first stage of being hunted, and he's already past it. But you can't, because megaraptors don't work that way. You can't make him listen, you can't make him change. You can only stand in the shadows and feel the dread building in your chest like water rising. The 4th day, Talon hunts the same clearing. The shape is closer now. You can make out details. This massive skull, the forward-facing eyes, the patience of something that knows it has time. It's not hunting yet. It's just confirming the pattern, making sure that this is predictable every day, making sure that this is safe. Talon eats his kill in the open and doesn't notice the shadow watching him. You think about the things that you would say if you could speak, about how Ridge's way only worked because she understood when to break her own rules, about how boldness without adaptation isn't courage, it's just a slower form of ending your own life, but how you found a different path and you're still here, and he could be too if you would just let go of what's already killed everyone who held onto it. But you can't say any of that. You can only watch. The 5th day, Talon heads towards the clearing again. The shape isn't visible anymore. That's worse. That means it's moved. That means it's positioning. And Talon doesn't come back. 2 days later, you find the site. The bones are crushed, not just eaten, but crunched down like a processing machine. The T-Rex extracted everything. Marrow from the long bones, calcium from the skull, every calorie that could be pulled from what used to be your brother. The skeleton looks like it went through a machine designed to leave nothing behind. You stand over what's left for a long time. The bold one, the one who pushed limits his whole life and called it strength. He survived over 700 days by being lucky. And then the luck ran out the moment something patient decided to wait for him. Here is the thing about Talon. He wasn't stupid. He saw what you were doing. He understood on some level that the old patterns weren't working, but understanding and changing are different things. And Talon couldn't let go of the strategy that his mother gave him, the way she hunted, the hours she kept, the ground she held. He died doing exactly what your mother taught him, and your mother died doing the same thing. The pattern was always going to kill everyone who followed it. You survived because you stopped following. You don't go to the forest edge anymore. Neither does Ember. The lesson is carved into those crushed bones, and you don't need to learn it twice. Ember finds a nesting site about a month later. Dense trees, heavy canopy, a natural hollow in the roots of a tree that fell decades before you hatched. The kind of place nothing large would bother checking, because there's nothing here worth the effort of pushing through the brush. You don't have language to discuss it, but both of you know this is right. 11 eggs, partially buried in debris for insulation. Ember doesn't leave the nest. You hunt for the both of you, dawn and dusk, the same pattern that's kept you alive for over 400 days since you figured it out. The eggs are the first thing you've ever had that matters more than surviving. You didn't know you could feel that way about something that hasn't hatched yet, but something in your brain has rewired around those 11 shapes in the ground, and suddenly every hunt isn't just about feeding yourself. Then there's movement in the interior. Something bigger than it should be is here. You track it for 2 days before you get a close look. It's a juvenile Giganotosaurus, maybe 2 years old, lost, probably pushed into unfamiliar territory, the same pressures that pushed you here years ago. It's not hunting the nest. It doesn't know the nest exists yet, but it's getting closer, following prey trails, moving through the brush, drifting towards the hollow where Ember is guarding everything that matters. 100 meters away, you can smell it now. You can also smell the eggs faintly, which means it can probably smell them too. 30 meters, close enough that waiting isn't an option anymore. The fight happens in the space between 2 heartbeats. The Giganotosaurus has size. It's taller, it has longer reach. In open ground, that all might matter, but this isn't open ground. This is dense forest, thick brush, the kind of terrain that you've been hunting for over a year. You know every angle here. You know where the trees break up charges, where the roots create obstacles, where the sightlines favor something your size. The Giganotosaurus knows none of it. Your claws, as long as your forearm, are curved and flattened with an edge that can open a rib cage. They find a gap between its 3rd and 4th rib before it even understands what's happening. Deep, something vital. The sound it makes is nothing you've heard before. It tries to turn to bring those massive jaws around, but the trees are too close and you're already moving. Another strike, another gap. You're not trying to kill it outright. You're trying to make it understand that this is a mistake. The Giganotosaurus retreats, crashing through vegetation it doesn't understand, bleeding from wounds that won't stop. It'll die somewhere in the forest probably, slowly, from injuries that got infected or blood loss that never quite stopped. You stand between the hollow and the direction it fled, and you wait until you can't hear it moving anymore. Ember doesn't leave the nest. She doesn't need to. That's what you're for. 7 of them survived. 4 eggs never quickened. Something went wrong in the development. Vibrations or temperature, just the random cruelty of biology. But 7 is enough. 7 is more than what survived from Ridge's clutch. And Ridge had better territory and more resources and wasn't living in the margins of an ecosystem that's been trying to kill her since the moment she hatched. You name them the way your kind names things, by what they do, not what they look like. The loud one, the watcher, the climber, the biter. 3 more that haven't declared themselves yet. The watcher is the one that you keep coming back to. Always processing, always taking in more than the others seem to notice. You recognize something in that, something older than memory, something that feels like looking at a version of yourself that hasn't learned anything yet. The loud one nearly goes to a stream one morning. You intercept before she gets close, and something in the way you move makes her understand that the water is wrong. She doesn't have words for why, neither of you do. The lesson transfers anyway. The climber figures out how to get into the lower canopy. This is good. Height means safety in ways that the ground doesn't offer. You watch her navigate branches that shouldn't hold her weight. Something that might be pride moves through your chest. They're hunting within weeks. Small things mostly. Insects, lizards, the occasional small mammal. Nothing that would draw attention from anything bigger. But the insects are there, and all the claws are there. And someday those claws will do what yours do. They'll grow up in the forest. They'll learn to hunt at dawn and dusk. They'll learn that the open ground is where things die, and the margins are where things lived. You're teaching your offspring to hide. That's the inheritance. Not strength, not territory, just the knowledge that existing quietly is better than existing loudly for a shorter time. Somewhere, your mother, if she was alive, would be horrified. But she is dead, so who is correct? A shape breaks the distance canopy one morning. You freeze. The hatchlings freeze with you, because that's what you've taught them. When the big ones move, you don't. A T-Rex, an adult, moving through the transition zone a few hundred meters away. It doesn't enter the dense interior. It never does. The brush is too thick, the prey too scattered, the effort too high for the reward. There are hadrosaurs on the floodplain, fat and slow and worth the chase. There's nothing here but shadows and things that learn to live in the shadows. The T-Rex passes without knowing you exist. You watch until it's gone, and then you watch a little longer. The hatchlings watch too. They're learning what doesn't hunt them here and why. They're learning that the biggest thing in this ecosystem isn't a threat if you're small enough and careful enough and patient enough to stay where it doesn't bother looking. The wet season returns. Rivers swell. The ecosystem exhales. The Spinosaurus spread back along the waterways, less concentrated, less dangerous at any single point. The Dinosaurs follow the sauropod herds as they scatter across the green floodplains. The T-Rex keep their patrol, but the pressure eases everywhere. Something like balance settles over the world. Not peace, because this ecosystem doesn't do peace, but everyone has found their place or died trying to find it. The Carnotaurus are gone. The Megaraptor, what's left of you, are still here. Day 1000. You're 8 meters long, a full adult. Your claws are everything ridges were, as long as your forearm, curved and flattened with an edge that can open a rib cage before the thing inside knows what happened. In the open, they're good weapons. In the dense interior, at dawn, in the dim light where you've learned to exist, they're the perfect killing machine. The sunrise finds you at the edge of your territory. Not the edge where the trees thin out, you don't go there anymore. The edge where your scent meets embers, where the space you've carved out of this impossible ecosystem begins and ends. Ember is with the hatchlings, 7 of them, still learning to use claws that look ridiculous on their small bodies. They'll grow into them. They'll grow into all of it. The dawn hunts, the dusk patterns, the discipline of staying invisible, even when everything in their blood wants them to be bold. Over the canopy, shapes are moving. T-Rex, a family group, adults and juveniles working the hadrosaur herds on the open floodplain. They don't know you're here. They don't need to know. You're not competing with them for anything they want. The Spinosaurus own the water. The Giganotosaurus follow the giant prey across the grasslands. The T-Rex command everything in between, and everything else either adapted to their presence or disappeared. And you're in the margins. The dense interior, the edges of daylight, the space that was too small for the apex predators to bother with and too specific for anyone else to figure out. You didn't beat the T-Rex. You didn't outrun the Giganotosaurus. You didn't become what Ridge was, an apex predator that held ground and commanded space. That pattern killed her. It killed Talon, and it would have killed you if you kept following it. You survived because you found out something else. A gap, a niche, a way of existing that the dominant predators never evolved to notice, because noticing it wasn't worth their time. That's not victory. There's no victory in an ecosystem that someone designed to produce extinction. But you're alive. Ember is alive. The 7 hatchlings are learning to hunt in the margins, and someday they'll teach their hatchlings the same thing. In an ecosystem built to kill everything in it, that's the only thing that matters. Some cruel, twisted god designed this experiment. Someone put 5 apex predators that never should have existed together and asked what would happen. What happened is this. The T-Rex won. They were always going to win. Best senses, strongest bite, most flexible hunting strategy. Everything else either found a place in the hierarchy they created or stopped existing. But winning doesn't mean what you think it means. The T-Rex didn't hunt the Megaraptor to extinction. They didn't fight the Giganotosaurus into submission. They just existed, and everything reorganized around around them. The species that couldn't find a gap outside their shadow disappeared. The megaraptors survived by becoming invisible, by wanting what the apex didn't want, by building a life in the margins where no one bigger bothered to look. 1,000 days, multiple siblings, a mother, and an entire species gone. And at the end of it, 7 hatchlings learning to hunt at dawn, because that's when the things that could kill them are still asleep. That's adaptation. That's what survival actually looks like when you're not the biggest thing. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to give it a like and comment down below what other simulations about dinosaurs you'd like me to run in the future. I really enjoyed making this idea. This was a harder video to make. You want more of these like hypothetical simulations of dinosaurs in the same ecosystem when they shouldn't be in the same ecosystem? Let me know, as I loved making this and would love to make more videos just like this. Make sure to like the video. If this video gets 30,000 likes, then whatever the top comment says will make that dinosaur into a simulation. Make sure to also subscribe and hit the post notification button, because I post multiple times a week and you don't want to miss out on those videos. And if you want to watch another one of my videos, then you can click the one that's on your screen right now. I'll see you there.